All right. Good evening. Meeting's about to begin. Before we begin, I just want to make sure that our virtual participants can hear and be heard. So Lauren, can you hear us? Okay.
Recording in progress.
I can hear.
Great, thank you. And Lynn, can you hear us? You can give a thumbs up if you don't want to come off mute.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, great. And then we are waiting for Jackie to be able to connect in fully, but we do have a quorum, so we can go ahead and begin. So with that, I would like to call the meeting to order. Welcome everybody to the Easton School Committee of Thursday, February 13th, 2025. This meeting is being conducted in a hybrid format where attendance by committee members may be remote or in person, and remote attendance shall count toward quorum. This meeting is being broadcast live and recorded on ECAT. So for tonight's meeting, we have committee member Lauren Loomis, who has checked in remotely, and in the Simmons Lecture Hall, we have Nancy DeLuca, Kelly Percio, and Jennifer Starr, along with our student representatives and our superintendent and assistant superintendent. This meeting is open to the public. Members of the public attending in person who wish to make comments will be invited to do so during the public comment period of tonight's meeting and will be required to state name and address before beginning comments. We will get to some of the more specific reminders about public comment, but just at a high level, be prepared to keep any comments to 3 minutes, and we will set a sort of a goal for the length of the public comment period when we get there, kind of depending on how many folks want to speak. So we want to balance, the need for people to have a voice and to share your thoughts with us, with the need to keep the meeting moving. So tonight we're also going to do something a little bit different, so I just wanted to share this before we get to the agenda item in case folks want to put together any thoughts and participate. So we have a few routine voting items first, and then we'll have our quarterly budget review. So our finance director and Dr. Cabral will do the quarterly budget review, but given how important the topic of budget is in the town and in the district right now, rather than just have the presentation and have the school committee discussion surrounding that, we will offer a limited Q&A specific to the budget topic. So if you do have any questions that come up as you're hearing us discuss the budget, there will be an opportunity to ask them, and that'll give us an opportunity to, provide information in real time and just make sure that we're getting as much accurate, timely information out as is possible. We will endeavor to keep that Q&A to about 10 or 15 minutes because we do have a long agenda with some other very time-sensitive and lengthy topics to get to that are, important to district operations as a whole and can't wait for future meetings. So we're again trying to really balance getting information out, but attending to the business that we need to get done as well. So hopefully that will work out well for folks, and the public comment period will still be available at the end of the meeting for additional comments. Okay. Alrighty, so with that very long preamble, meeting is called to order, and we can begin with the first item on the agenda, which is a vote to approve the Gale Associates design amendment related to the security project. So Dr. Cabral.
Thank you.
He's there. Do you want me to?
Yes, please.
Bring him over?
So John Cutler from Gale Associates is here. He is the OPM for the security project on the 3 schools other than Blanche Ames, and he is going to present this request for vote for change orders. It has already been presented to the Municipal Building Committee that Lauren and Nancy both are members of in executive session.
He says he's getting no audio on his end.
Okay.
Does he need to be promoted to a panelist?
He is a panelist. Let me see.
Can you guys hear me on your end?
Yes, we
Yes,
can.
now we can.
I'm hearing nothing from you guys.
Okay. Let me tell him to try to put his
Right.
Yeah, just ask him to check his speaker setting.
So I can start just by talking generally about the project. We have worked with the town to secure funding over a couple of years through a borrowing bond to upgrade the security to what we feel it should be in the other schools so that they are equally. I'm very careful about what we talk about when we talk about security, but that they're equally on par with the Blanche Ames School, being our newest school. Whether school's new or not, we definitely want the security to be the same. And so that work is ongoing right now, and it's very common in a project that is a multi-million-dollar project to have change orders as you go along. Things happen that you don't anticipate. These change orders do not have a significant impact on the budget at all. They were recommended to the Municipal Building Committee. The Municipal Building Committee heard about them in depth in executive session, which is how we talk about sensitive security information, and did vote to recommend it to the school committee for approval.
Okay, I can hear you now.
Great. I was
Just in time. The floor is yours, Mr. Cutler.
Oh, okay. So tonight we come with a recommendation from the Municipal Building Committee. We have two amendments from our design team. The first amendment is for $16,300. This was for a geotechnical investigation. Just a bit of backstory. Effectively, in schematic design, we provided the schools with multiple options for their vestibules. The option that was selected for the RO school included pulling out the existing vestibule and expanding it by creating a curtain wall. That curtain wall, being structural, is anchored underground. Therefore, we needed to determine what was in the soils underground to make sure it was suitable to carry that structure. So this was the cost to perform and include those findings in the design.
And everything was found to be fine.
Everything was found to be exactly what we assumed it was. Correct. Do you want me to go through both of them, Alicia, or do you guys
Yeah, I
you
think
need
we
to vote?
can, yeah, and we can
Okay.
vote them together.
Yes, please.
Okay. So I can't go into a ton of detail on designer amendment number 3 because this is a public meeting. I'm happy to go into executive session or any other way to close this off. But it's regards to the security system design, and this is $29,450 for the design associated with adjustments at the Blanche Ames School. It's effectively the most cost-effective solution to bring the Blanche Ames School in line with what we are doing at the other 3 schools.
And again, the Municipal Building Committee heard about this in detail in executive session and did recommend it to be approved by the school committee.
And these are capital improvements?
These are, it's not through capital, it's through the town is doing a borrowing for this and has provided it to us.
Okay.
So no
So-
impact on the operating budget.
It's no operating budget funds. Yes, correct, sorry, I didn't know what you meant.
Yes.
All right, do any school committee members have any questions or feel there's a need for information that would require an executive session before approving?
Well, Lauren and I got to
Yes.
be in executive session, and everything was as it should be in the police, fire, they're all involved, everybody's involved in the whole thing, so I think it's been around the world and back.
Okay, all right. Oh, yes,
As long as Nancy and Lauren are comfortable with it, I feel comfortable with it.
Okay. So Nancy, sounds like you are. Lauren, do you have an opinion?
I support it. I supported it with the Municipal Building Committee as well.
Okay, thank you. Okay. So with that, doesn't sound like we have any objection then to voting on this tonight?
No, and the matter of safety is important, so fully understand its support.
Great. Would somebody like to make a motion then to approve the 2 proposed design amendments for Gale Associates?
So moved, DeLuca.
Can I get a second?
Second, Loomis.
All right, and roll call vote.
DeLuca, yes.
Wiseman, yes.
Star, yes?
Loomis, yes.
Percio, yes.
Okay, all right, great. Thank you. Thank you for joining.
No, thank you. Leisha, should I just send these over to Lynn for
Yes, please.
for signature?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Thank you. Have a good night.
All right. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Okay, so next up we have a vote to approve an out-of-state trip. Dr. Cabral?
Sure. This is a music trip for Image, the EMS show choir, and James Cook, who's a teacher at EMS, is here to present the proposal for their third year at the Little Rotary Rumble competition in Warwick. Again, it's relatively close, but just because it crosses the state lines, it's school committee policy to approve it. So he can present this information to you and answer any questions you might have.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes. Can you hear us?
Awesome. Yes, I can.
Great.
So this will be the third year that Image, the EMS show choir, is hoping to go to the Little Rotary Rumble. We actually attended the first ever Little Rotary Rumble, and it was a wonderful time that we went last year, and we're looking to go again. Because of the experience that we've had, we mentioned this to Panache, which is the high school show choir, and they are actually asking to also go, which is what was listed there. But the only thing is their show is going to be on the Saturday and ours is going to be on the Friday because the Rotary Rumble has gotten so popular that they moved it to being a middle school only session for Friday and a high school only session for Saturday because they have so many groups from around the region coming in.
Okay. That's great. And so I think in our printed packet, we only have the image, but Nancy did see the Panache in the electronic packet. So just in case there's any confusion as to why we only have one in front of us.
Thank you.
Both were proposed. Okay. Any questions from the committee?
I do. Are you taking buses?
Yes, we are taking Image will take a bus on Friday, and then Panache will take a bus the next day.
And total for grades 6 through 12, 40 kids?
So Panache is 40.
Oh,
For us, I think I put 24 on there. It should have been 25, but it's 25 plus the 3 chaperones. So me and the 2 others, their assistant director and choreographer. So it'll be 28 for Image on the Friday, and then 40 for the Saturday.
thank you.
And we're covering this through student activity fees?
Yes.
Okay. Any other questions? No? All right. Would somebody like to make a motion to approve the out-of-state trip for Easton Middle School's Image and OA's Panache show choirs to attend the Little Rotary Rumble in Rhode Island on Friday, March 14th and 15th?
So moved, Percio?
Can I get a second?
DeLuca, second.
Roll call vote?
DeLuca, yes.
Wiseman, yes.
Star, yes?
Loomis, yes.
Percio, yes.
Thank you for joining and good luck to the show choirs.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Thank you, too.
Okay, and next up is a vote to approve a donation. Dr. Claw?
OA Principal Kelly Kavanaugh is here to present the James Luke Easton Youth Sports donation, and she can tell you how much it is, what its intended use is, and answer questions.
Thank you very much. And is the mic on there? Just checking to make sure it's turned on.
Yes.
Great.
We are very fortunate, our assistant, one of our football coaches, the freshman football coach, Mark Luke, is donating $2,000 to our athletic department in order to cover the activity fees of families who cannot afford it and cover the costs. And it is in the name of his father, the James Luke Easton Youth Sports Foundation is the actual donor. But we're very thankful that we have Mark on our staff and that he's willing to get this money to our students.
I'm sorry, can I interrupt you, Mrs. Kavanaugh? I can't hear you.
Okay. Thank you.
You can untape the mic.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Just put the mic close to
I
your
have the
head.
mic up.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, yes, I can. Thank you.
I will repeat myself. Mark Luke,
Sorry, thank you.
you're fine, Lauren. Thank you so much for telling me. Mark Luke, our freshman football coach, runs a foundation in the name of his father, James Luke. It's called the James Luke Easton Youth Sports Foundation, and it supports students participating in sports. And this donation of $2,000 is to pay for students, to give this towards the students who cannot afford to play athletics in our school system.
Okay, any questions, or comments from the committee?
Very generous.
Yes. It's really amazing, and I know I know that the foundation has covered participation fees for many athletes in town, for many programs, including OA in the past. So they've been extremely generous for many, many years, and we really appreciate the generosity. It's just wonderful to remove that financial concern for families of kids who want to participate and benefit so much from it. So, okay, would somebody like to make a motion then to accept the donation of $2,000 from the James Luke Foundation?
Easton Youth Sports Foundation.
Easton Youth Sports Foundation.
So moved, Garcia.
And can I get a second?
Second, Loomis.
Roll call vote.
DeLuca, yes?
Wiseman, yes.
Star, yes?
Loomis, yes.
Garcia, yes.
Thank you. Great, thank you. So next up, we have the quarterly budget review. So is there anything you need the screen for? Yeah?
Presentation.
Okay,
Okay, great, thank you.
Head up to the audience.
Thank you very much.
There's an extra mic there if you want to use that one.
Thank
It
you.
just needs to be turned on.
Okay.
Okay, no worries, I'll just hold that. Okay, good evening, school committee and public. I just wanted to start off, we did include a couple items in the school committee's packets tonight. Some items that we've incorporated in the presentation include a budget summary by expense category and a budget summary by location code. We also have provided a document that is not part of this presentation that is a school budget by DESI code breakdown. And so we've provided the school budget by DESI code breakdown. Just wanted to remind that due to the DESI chart of account changes back in July of 2022, you will notice as school committee members differences between our fiscal year 25 adopted budget and our prior years regarding presentation via the town budget book. So I will start off just with our next slide as far as agenda. So we typically like to start these presentations off with some key terms. I will not go through all of them, just our overall adopted budget highlights for fiscal year 25, our budget broken down by expense category, and our budget by school location, and just an overall summary. Next slide, please. So some of the key terms you'll hear throughout tonight's presentation, and just framing for the public and for our members here that are participating tonight. An appropriation is what our, the actual definition are budget funds that are set aside by our school committee for specific use within our fiscal year cycle. Leading into the definition of what our fiscal year actually is. That's our time frame in which we conduct business and we evaluate budget and our actual expenses. For Easton Public Schools, this is July 1st through June 30th of each year. And then when we refer to the fiscal year in our presentation, the number is represented by the calendar year in which the fiscal year ends. So right now we're in fiscal year 25. Our year ends in June of 2025. As far as operating, our presentation focuses solely on operating budget. that is our annual budget appropriation for our ongoing program costs, which include salaries, wages, materials, supplies, purchases of services, etc. Next slide, please. So as far as our 2025 adopted budget highlights, we always frame where we started our fiscal year. For 2025, we had a 5.78% increase, or slightly over $2.7 million was appropriated, leading to a $49.7 million budget. We also like to frame where we started our fiscal year budget as far as what category we were in. And so for this current fiscal year, we are in the reactive or essential category. Just a reminder of what that actually means. That means that we're only currently providing staff or resources, which are a reaction to our current need or mandate. We may not fully satisfy the need or mandate, and just highlighted a couple of examples of items that were funded in the last fiscal year. Next slide, please. Thank you. So within this graph representation, we like to do a comparison of where we are currently, and we refer to Q2, so that is July 1st through December 31st of 2024 versus July 1st of 2023 through December 31st of 2023. So Q2 over Q2. So where we're at currently in this fiscal year, we have spent about $18.6 million as of December 31st, leaving $31.1 million available to spend in our operating budget, compared to last fiscal year, 18.1, with about $28 million remaining. So right now, we're at about 37.4% total spent. Last year, same time, we were about 38.6% of our spend down. We're at about $459,000 greater spend quarter over quarter for the year-to-date amounts.
Sorry, can you repeat that one more time? You went through it really quick. And it was hard to follow.
Yeah.
So what is the percentage
that we're at currently?
Yeah, compared to last year.
Yeah, so we're at 37.4%.
Okay.
And then last year, the same time, we had spent 38.6 of that total budget.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, you're welcome. Okay, next slide, please. Thank you. So the way that this is broken down, we have different categories within our accounting software system that just aggregate major, I'm going to say the word cost center, but that can be used interchangeably for other areas. So the categories are salaries and wages, purchases of services, materials and supplies, and other charges and expenses. As far as purchases of services, that includes special services tuition, transportation, other contract services, and utilities. Our materials and supplies are pretty much for their name's sake, consumables and school supplies. And then our other charges and expenses consist of postage, conferences, registration, miscellaneous fringe benefits, what have you. So here, we like just to show where we're at this current year compared to the same time period last year. And I just like to highlight some of the larger categories as far as changes. Of course, our salaries and wages are one of our largest categories from a budgetary perspective. And as far as the increase we had this year, year to date, we are at a 5.5% increase over last year, or $789,000. That includes lane changes, contractual obligations, etc. As far as the next largest driver in this, that is our purchase of services category. And when we go to the next slide, we actually had decreases between our purchases of services category and our materials and supplies category. However, we had an increase in our other charges and expenses category, and the major driver for that is actually our unemployment insurance increasing. So this is a depiction from a pie chart or donut chart perspective. The next slide, please. Actually putting that into numbers and figures. So the way this is set up, you have the 4 different categories: salaries and wages, purchase of services, materials and supplies, and other charges and expenses. Starting off with fiscal year 25, we have an adopted budget column. You can look at the 24 to see what we had adopted in those categories. The second column from the left is where we're at through 12/31 for year-to-date expenses, and the same comparison the same time last year. So basically, we're just looking at 12/31/2024 versus 12/31/2023. Looking at the first 2 quarters of spend, where are we at currently, and where were we at the same time last year? So in these particular categories, as far as salaries, for an example, we're 37% spent of this fiscal year. Last year, we were at 36.9. I want to draw your attention to the categories with the larger changes as far as purchase of services and materials and supplies. Overall, we have spent about 2.9 million in purchase of services this year versus the 2.9 versus the 3.1. So we're about $200,000 trailing compared to the same time last year. And the same goes for materials and supplies. For the most part, when looking at from an analytical perspective of what the drivers are, I'm seeing just timing differences in how we're paying some of our vendors for different items. I don't see anything that's really material. If we pay a transportation invoice a little bit later than a prior period, that's about $172,000 for each of those invoices. So one small invoice, and I say small, it's not really small, one invoice can drive fluctuations, or one vendor that we're paying can drive fluctuations in between each of these categories. So I just wanted to note that. As far as our other charges and expenses, the $37,000 increase is related to unexpected unemployment insurance cost increases that are happening this year. And so overall, this is a chart that just shows same period last year, we've spent $459,000 more year over year, and we're about a 2.5% increase or difference overall at the same time period last year. Next slide, please. So then this next slide is just a depiction. We also have the ability to break down by location code within our accounting system. So we break everything down by each of the school locations, and then we also have a category called system-wide that spans based off its namesake. That typically includes things like facilities maintenance and special ed services. And then we also have central admin as another category. Just looking at year over year, being able, and I see there's an error there. I have dollar amounts on the donut chart versus percentages in there. As far as the way that that's set up.
Has the percentages if you want to refer to them.
Sure. Yeah, I'll take that from you.
And while that's happening, system-wide and central admin, that includes things that go across the district. For example, the cost of legal fees or the cost of the Aspen student management system, things like that, that go across all of the schools.
Yep, and then so that system-wide category has everything baked in. It has salaries, utilities, like I said, special services, building repairs, improvements. The central admin includes mostly salaries, travel, printer maintenance, etc. And one of the larger changes, I'm actually going to just pop to the next slide because I have a breakdown by each of the categories comparing. And so this is drilled down a little bit more. It breaks this down by each of the elementary schools, the secondary schools, and then system-wide, like I said, consists of special education, central admin, and operations and maintenance. I'm only going to draw attention to really large changes that are taking place. And I use the word change very loosely as far as one of the larger categories for quarter over quarter when comparing the year-to-date amounts. I want to draw your attention to the central admin line, the $163,000 increase. As we've noted in previous budget presentations, we have done extensive DESI code cleanup. And what that means is we have expense lines within our general ledger accounting system that we have prescribed ways to code based off of how DESI is telling us to code. So for example, anything related to transportation has a very specific code and definition by DESI. That's code 3300. So we've done cleanup since July of 2022 with the restructuring, which is why when doing cross comparisons, we don't necessarily have longitudinal data for some of our expense lines as we're making these changes. So because you see 163,000 there for central admin, or 154,000 in that difference dollar amount column, that does not mean that we added $163,000 worth of staffing. We actually had reclassifications between different categories from a DESI code perspective for why you're seeing some of the changes and increases. So out of that 163,000 as an example for central admin, 122,000 of that was related to moving employees from one classification to another from a DESI code perspective. So I just wanted to point that out.
They come out of a line somewhere else.
And they move into the central admin line. So I just wanted to throw that out there, that you will see fluctuations from time to time that are related to timing from a budgetary perspective and have been related to our DESI code restructure. We are still continually working on that and refining, because as we go through the general ledger, we realize not all expenses are categorized in that DESI code bucket that we need them to be coded to. So you will see fluctuations from time to time, but I want to bring those to your attention as we go through our quarterly budget presentations. And I'm just trying to think if I have anything else that's really important to note on here. The chart is set up very similarly, where you can see the adopted budget figures. We wanted to present this because in our town budget book, we have a breakdown for how we adopted the budget in these same categories by building location. So to be able to track to see how each building is impacted each quarter from a spend perspective. And overall, just breaking down that we're at the 37.4% out of the 49.7 million, compared to the 38.6 same time last year, and just that overall 2.5% difference. Next slide, please. And what we like to also include in our quarterly budget presentations are just student enrollment breakdowns. Overall, we would hope there's correlation between our student enrollment numbers and what we're spending at each of the school locations, but just wanting to make sure that the public is aware that when we compile our budget requests, our funding and our funding's base needs, our funding based on the needs of each school, our budget's not compiled on a one-size-fits-all per pupil cost basis. There are going to be other things that we're including and analyzing as we're building our budget and analyzing it on a quarterly basis. Next slide, please. Oh, I don't have the... Okay, so when I converted over from Canva to Google, I lost my barometer slide. Typically, I have a slide that's included that shows exactly where we're at on a scale. And so it's just reiterating that we're at 37.4% of our total budget spend for the fiscal year, or $18.6 million so far. I also like to conclude with where we are as far as some of our horizon items and just from the cyclical nature. So reminding the public that currently we're at the 37.4% spend down. At Q2 of 2024, we were at a 38.6% spend down. Our fiscal year spending is cyclical in nature, so our spending will vary from quarter to quarter, and an example is during our winter months, we spend more on utility costs. As far as some of the horizon items that I brought up the last meeting, we knew what our potential inflation cost factor would be for out-of-district for special services for the next year, and that is 3.42%. That's a slight decrease compared to fiscal year 25 at 4.69. A reminder that historically that factor had been under 2% for the last 10 years, but the fiscal year 24 was an anomaly as far as a 14% increase. We also have preliminary numbers from a governor perspective as far as budget. Our minimum aid, the budget recommended by the governor is $75 per pupil. As far as a cost reduction from our current year's per pupil aid, and that I believe was at $104 per student. We also know that from a food service perspective, which doesn't necessarily impact our operational budget, food service is funded through grant funding through USDA and through the state of Massachusetts. But as far as universal free program for next year, we already know that what has been presented by the governor is not actually enough to fund a full year of free breakfast and lunch for our students. So we'll stay tuned with more information as we find out from the state what that actually means. But just a frame of reference, in the past when working on budget projections, we've had a range of up to $250,000 as of last year for what that shortfall may mean that we would need to come up with if the governor's proposal is not actually fully funded for a free and reduced lunch program. We also just wanted to remind that we also don't have a complete known status of what our federal grant funding will look like next fiscal year. As far as our IDEA grants, we're usually awarded close to $1 million. in that area, and then for our entitlement grants, average about 200,000 at as low as maybe 150,000. So those are things we are keeping in mind as we start to build our operational budget for fiscal year 26. And I'm going to stop there to see if Dr. Cabral has anything to add or if there are any other questions.
Are there any questions about FY25?
Yes, I do have quite a few, but someone else can go first. Can we go back a few slides? So can we go to start off with the one that is the spend by category, please? So on this, a couple of things you talked about was sort of differences in timing and understanding the categories piece of it.
Yes.
So did we shift category items between materials and supplies and other charges and expenses? Is that the reason why I see an increase in one and a decrease in the other, or is there something else that drove that?
No, so those didn't have reclassification. So the other, and I'm just making sure I'm looking at this right, the other charges and expenses, the increase of the 37,000, that is purely driven, the increase in that category has been driven by our unemployment cost increases.
Okay. And are we concerned about our overall budget, given the fact that there was an increase in the overall unemployment insurance?
No, I believe we're able to cover that, and so we're hoping to bring to school committee at a future meeting the second reading of the budget transfer policy and then present a couple budget transfers that I've identified from a business office perspective. But as we're training our staff with that policy coming forward, they will start putting together budget transfers.
Okay.
So they've actually been instructed as we are rounding out the fiscal year. We have a closeout as far as encumbrances go. So they have a April 1st cutoff date for purchase orders. It's not a budget freeze. It is a way for us to project out to see where we're going to end this fiscal year. So they'll get their purchase orders in by April 1st, projecting out for what they think they need to spend. And they will have to actually create budget transfers as they're doing that process if they find out an expense line will not have enough to cover them from now to the end of the fiscal year. So I just wanted to throw that out there as far as process for some of the line items and being able to move funds to be able to continue the fiscal year. I feel very comfortable where we're at budget-wise, but what I am also keeping in mind is we did have items that were baked into this fiscal year that did not come to fruition, such as our sped prepayments of the $200,000 and the $100,000 utility cost savings with Bland James Solar. So we are monitoring that to make sure we have enough dollars in other areas to be able to cover. We also want to make sure that everybody's able to get their purchasing in from a purchase order perspective. That will also be able to allow us to take a really deep dive and see where we're at. If we've encumbered everything for the year and we still have $50,000 on the table, we'll actually know where we stand as far as budget transfers and being able to report out to school committee for where we're at. I do anticipate with those budget transfers as well, they'll be coming to school committee for reviewing between the DESI code changes that happen. And at that point in time, we'll be updating you what's the impact of that? Is this changing the bottom line at all as far as where we're at? And it shouldn't, right? We should be moving dollars from one line item to another line item, and that's what we're coming to you to authorize.
Okay.
Can you just, I'm sorry for interrupting, can you go back over what you said about certain expenses or certain savings that didn't come to fruition?
Yes. So as far as expenses, when we came into fiscal year 25, we had a $200,000 cost savings baked into our fiscal year 25 budget in order to balance it to prepay our special ed out of district tuitions. That did not take place. When we closed out fiscal year 24, we only had about $24,000 left on the table as far as closing our budget of what was not spent at all. Like, that's how tightly we closed fiscal year 24 budget. We didn't have $200,000 available on the table to do our special services prepayments. We also had $100,000 to balance the budget for fiscal year 25 included. From a town perspective, when we went to balance, the town had helped us identify, hey, we're gonna have solar on Bland James. We're projecting $100,000 cost savings. That is not happening in this current fiscal year. We do expect future cost savings because of that project, but that's $300,000 within our current fiscal year budget that we have to find in other areas to be able to make sure we're fully funded throughout the rest of the fiscal year.
And just to clarify, the way, for people who might not might be watching but might not be familiar with school finance. I typically use the analogy of using a checkbook. If anybody still uses checkbooks, I don't know, but people generally have the concept of a checkbook. And what we're asking people to do is we have distributed the budgeting process to principals, department chairs, so that they are able to have control of their own budgets. So we work on the allocations together, and then they can pay attention to what their staff needs as the year goes on. So we're teaching them pieces of that process. So 2 years ago, we asked them to put us to, as of May 1st, we asked them to put in their anticipated spending for the rest of the school year, because it's kind of, when you go to balance your checkbook, it's a process. When you balance a checkbook that has $50 million in it, it's a lot more of a process, especially when other people are using checks and spending that money, and you have to figure out where that is. So, so Andrea and her team need time to do that before the end of the fiscal year, because then we have to determine, is there money left over? Where does it go? What does it cover? Does it go back to the town? We have such a lean budget right now, because over the years there is no fluff, there is no padding, there is nothing like that. And so we run really to the dollar, and you always have unanticipated expenses. So fortunately, we made it, but we weren't able to prepay things that would have helped this year's budget. When we say that April 1st, we're asking people who are responsible for budgets. So if people aren't responsible for a budget in the district, they might not be familiar with this. But people who are responsible for pieces of the budget need to have their anticipated expenses in by April 1st. In the past, that had been sort of perceived by people who might not do the budgets as we have a budget freeze. That's not accurate. The purchase orders go in. It's like writing the checks. If you know how much heat is going to cost for the next 2 months, you just write those checks out in advance. That way, she can tell how much is encumbered or put aside for that expense that needs to be paid. So we are anticipating that. Last year, the cutoff was April 1st. We're still spending, typically from April 1st on is about $13 million more dollars. So that's all being spent. We just need to let Andrea know, what do we anticipate? That was, for the last 2 years, it's been a learning process for people. They may forget things. And so this is the third year. We're hoping this is going to be a lot more structured. So staff and people in different departments are going to hear the people that do their budgets asking them, what do we need for the rest of the year for that reason? So that we can, because the budget's so tight, we have to know exactly how much is going to be left or used or encumbered for other purposes. And so spending continues. We just need to know in advance. Now, unanticipated things happen. We need to limit them. And so if there's an emergency, obviously there's a service call that needs to be made at a school for heating, something like that, we have to continue doing that. But all of those then go directly to Andrea so that she can keep track. She can't keep track of hundreds of them coming in at a time. So we have to really parcel down how many that is. And so that's going to happen again April 1st. That's already been sent out to everybody that does the budget. But as they're also learning their budget lines, they have to make these budget transfers, which means they may have had, $1,000 in a line for library books. And they might be finding, well, we've been spending $1,500 for library books every year. Well, now's their opportunity to look and say, okay, let's take $500 from speakers for kids, when speakers come in and do a presentation or something, and move it to that line and just lower it. So they're doing that right now. So those will be all done, which will give us a better idea for reporting to you. And then April 1st, they have to have all their POs in. So if people ask for things after April 1st, if that is a concern, they should be talking to whoever does their budget before that time, so they can make sure those expenses are encumbered. Some additional questions?
I did, but not on this one, so I'll just pause here because there was a lot that we just covered to make sure anybody else who has ones on this can ask.
Lauren or Jackie, any questions from you on that?
Nope, all set.
And then on the next one, the one you had done by location.
Yes.
You had mentioned that the adjustment on central admin was a reclass, but I'm having trouble figuring out where it came from.
Okay.
Or is it a timing issue? It might be both, but it's just,
I don't think.
my math, the math didn't work in my brain, is different.
Yep. So I don't think it's a timing difference. It is actually reclassification. There's two positions that, when comparing the same breakdown of central admin from the same time period in fiscal year '24, those two positions were not listed in the central admin line item as far as the category that's out there. So I'm just looking to see if I can see where they were categorized previously.
Thank you.
Yep.
It's just not, when I look at the lines, it's not obvious.
Yep, no worries. So one of those positions was previously listed in Blanche Ames.
Okay.
And I don't, do you want the position title?
No, that's fine.
Okay. And let me see the other
That
one.
makes sense, because I know we added a role in Blanche James, I believe in your initial piece, so that would make sense why we would see the wash.
But let me
It wouldn't
see
be
the
obvious where
other-
it came from, because the line is shifted.
We didn't,
No?
No, Blanche, that position was moved to central office.
it was just in that line, and it just moved to a different line.
Okay.
It's not a person moving or a position moving.
I'm trying to understand why Blanche James doesn't show the difference. So Blanche James is only down by 7,000, not 163. That was my question. That was the confusion. And we can follow it up at a future time if need be. It's just, if it's reclassed, I'm having trouble seeing where it came from.
I
is my
gotcha.
point. So if we added other costs to Blanche James, then that would explain it.
So like the offset. So
Yes.
would you prefer, because what I'm doing is I'm taking data from our software, our general ledger system,
Yep.
and basically putting it in pivot tables and just blowing those out so we can see every single line item of what's in there. So we can just do a cross comparison and provide that to
Okay.
show how we got to the difference.
That would be
there.
helpful. Yeah, it's not obvious where it came from. is the
Yeah,
bottom line.
I understand that,
So there
yeah.
must be an ad at Blanche James that I'm
Yeah,
not
you want to be able to
seeing
see, can you see the net amount
The ins and
of
outs are
everything?
confusing. Yeah.
Yes, I
There
understand.
could be a third entity,
That's what I was effectively.
supply line or something
That's
that
what I
then
was saying.
influences what goes into Blanche.
If something else drove Blanche James
Yes.
up, which is just why it's hard to look at it from this view.
Yeah,
it
because
looks-
you're not seeing a one-for-one match for
Yes.
what changed.
Yeah,
I completely
or a
understand
summary of the
that.
deltas.
Okay.
But the explanation of the role reclass makes sense, so I appreciate that. Anything else on this one from anybody else? I had a couple questions on the summary you gave at the end verbally around some of the shifts. So
Yeah.
can you share how, you said it quickly and I couldn't scribble it
It's
down
okay,
fast
yeah,
enough.
no worries.
How much funding are we receiving from federal government?
So
at this
right
point?
now, about $1 million from the IDEA grant.
Okay.
And as far as entitlement grants, I believe last year was only it was lower. It was only like 150 for entitlement for Title I.
I'm sorry, can you just, for people that are watching, can you explain what those grants are, please?
Sure. Yes, for IDEA, we receive an allocation from the federal government to support special services. So
Students with special needs.
yes, students with special needs.
It's
Currently,
The IDEA is the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act.
yep. And then so currently that is being spent on support for paraprofessionals. So there's mostly salaries that are baked into that particular grant. As far as the entitlement grant, Title I,
That's for students of low income.
yes. So that grant for the majority of how we allocate is supporting interventionist salaries.
And our Title I grant from fiscal year '24 was $290,312, and this year was $138,482.
We typically don't find out until the summer and after a budget is already passed.
And Title IIA, which is funds some professional development, last year was $55,278, and this year was $49,128. And Title III supports English language learners. Last year was $15,788. This year was $17,765. And then Title IVA, which is some more professional development, was 11,271 last year, and this year is 21,062. And that is a reduction overall of about 150,000.
And are these grants based on any specific qualifications or just what we have applied for? Or how does that?
Yeah, these are entitlement grants. So every district receives these grants based on certain indicators. When our census shows that we are hovering around, it's interesting because the federal census is different in comparison to what our town may report as our high-risk students. But the federal census right now always has us hovering around 5% for our low-income families. And that is for Title I. But that influences all the entitlement grants. And when we drop below 5% in a given year, that's when we lose money. When we are over 5%, that's when we gain money. Like a significant amount, meaning about $100,000. And so when that happens, for example, this year, we knew that we had to move interventionists out of the Title I grant, and that's when we were able to use some of the ARPA funding for this 1 year to make sure that we could still have our interventionists in our schools.
And just to remind people, that funding is now gone.
No.
Not necessarily.
The ARPA?
ARPA.
Oh, ARPA,
ARPA
yes,
is, sorry.
yes.
The federal grants it's undetermined what's going to happen. They are supervised and allocated from the United States Department of Education. And until we know what will be happening with the United States Department of Education, we won't know what's happening with those grants.
So I'm going to recap what I heard to make sure we're all getting it. We have $1 million in funds that are coming through the U.S. Department of Education, which are now in question.
Over
More
$1
than
million.
$1 million.
Thank you.
And also, there's restraints on
How we can
utilize some of the professional development, just to be very clear. And you can go right on the website and see how the funds are able to be used.
Grants are very prescribed about what their use is for.
I think I would respectfully ask, as we continue through budget conversations, that we start to look at both the ins and the outs. I know we spend a lot of time on our expenses. Given the current dynamic, I think we need to spend time on the intake as well and the current state of it because of the situation that we're all in and what we're watching closely.
We are. When we do our budget presentation for you for next year, it has all the drivers for next year's budget and things that we may be concerned about or things that are in flux and not definite yet.
Great, I appreciate that. And I think even as we do the quarterly review, so my question on the quarterly piece for this year is, now that we've recapped the situation, our questions for this year, and I know we started talking about this last school committee, but I do think it's important for everyone to hear and understand. Have we obtained the federal funds for this year? Are there funds that are still in question for this year?
So I know for the, go ahead, Andrea.
I was going to say, just based off of what I've seen from all the literature with the kind of the pause on a lot of federal funding sources, I believe we are safe for this current fiscal year from what the information that's been provided from some of the listservs and professional groups that I'm a part of. I believe Chrissy and Leisha as well. Just making sure that we are still carefully monitoring because day by day, I feel like anything could change.
Yep.
It is subject to
yeah.
change. We are safe today. It is subject to change, is the answer.
Are there funds still being sent to us?
Yes.
Okay. I want to make sure we're all getting the current dynamic and where we're at and not. Okay.
We have been told, the assistant superintendents who manage the entitlement grants, we have been told that the entitlement grants are safe for this year, this school year only.
So through June.
Through June.
Thank you. So then I just want to go to the items on state support. So on a state support, I heard you say that this year we received 104 per student and we are getting feedback that's going to drop to 75.
That's correct, and that's just the very first version of what the governor has put forward. That number could still change by the time that number's actually solidified for next fiscal year.
Okay.
So as a minimum aid district, if you're looking at longitudinal data, the law requires $30 per student. And ever since it's been a law, it's been $30 per student, except for 3 years. 2 years, it was $60 per student, and 1 year is $104 per student. The governor put out her first iteration of the budget, and she has a placeholder of $75. If you go back and look at past iterations, what the governor puts in the budget, it never stays the same. It has to go to the Senate, it has to go to the House, it has to go to the Ways and Means Committee, and then it goes back to the governor. And so we put that in as a placeholder, but it can change. It changed last year, it changes every year. So we try to go by what our longitudinal data is, but we never really know. We, as an organization, Mass Association of School Superintendents and School Committees, have asked repeatedly for $150 per student. We've never gotten that. The closest we ever got was 104, and that was only one time. So we have no idea what we're going to get.
And you don't know that until what date, approximately?
We don't know until the final budget is done, and that's after town meeting when we vote on our budget. That's the same every year.
And it's important to note too that if the number changes and there's an increase, the schools directly do not see that funding. That funding goes directly to the town.
And then my other question was on the food service piece. So I heard you say, and I might be wrong, so I think I heard you say is what I should really be articulating there. What I took away from that is that our ability to provide the free breakfasts and lunches that have been provided since COVID was coming from a combination of the state and the U.S. Department of Agriculture. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And what percentage comes from each?
I don't know, but I could find that out for you.
Okay, I think that's helpful for us to understand, as I know that's also significantly in question.
It is
And-
significantly in question.
Yeah.
It is a concern for next year.
What I would say to that is with Massachusetts adopting the universal free, the reimbursement rate from a federal perspective, the state has taken on more of that onus as far as the mix between the two entities. So we are definitely concerned if the state is saying they're not going to be fully funding next year. I don't know if USDA reimbursement rate would then cover some of that difference, but I will find out what the percentages are between the two.
So I think you said something very critical there that I want to make sure I follow, which is the universal free means what for everyone's benefits?
So that means that all students qualify for free breakfast and free lunch. So their first meal, they do not have to pay for. If they do go and purchase a second meal or a la carte items, they do have to pay out of pocket for those items.
So if the USDA funds are in question and the state is not able to cover it all, then we would have to make up the difference.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, because the language from the state was subject to appropriation, right? Which is their kind of get out of jail free
That-
card for promising us stuff.
The free
Yeah.
meals
Yeah.
says subject to appropriation. And so it was universally accepted as this wonderful thing that is going to be free forever. But those words, subject to appropriation, we get lots of correspondence that says subject to appropriation. And that just means if we can't afford it, we won't do it. And that happens a lot with a lot of things.
Okay. Thank you. That is my questions now.
Okay. Any other questions from school committee? Okay, all right. So, let me think. So, why don't we head back up? We can segue a bit into the current budget situation, just provide an update on some of what we've been discussing at PACE and what you've been discussing with staff, and then we can, if folks in the audience have any questions regarding either this budget presentation or the update, we can take a few minutes and hear some questions or provide information or clarification. So we can head back up to the front of the room. mention, I was remiss when going through the meeting introductions, and I regret overlooking an opportunity to introduce one of our members of our Student Advisory Council. So I'll turn this over to Marvel to do a quick introduction, and then we'll proceed with the Q&A.
Perfect. So our Student Advisory Board to the school committee is composed of 5 students. We have senior Franklin Chen, junior Veronica Shinoy, sophomore Leah Vora, and here with us today, freshman Brendan Dolan. Brendan specifically works with Easton Middle School and will be updating us on that later. As of now, we hope to continue to get more student representation during the meetings by inviting all students from the board.
Hi, everyone.
Welcome. Okay, all right, so I guess before we jump into a Q&A, are there folks who do have questions that you want to address now? And I guess based on the number, we can take names and keep track so that we get to everybody, or if it's only a handful or none, we can move on. I do want to keep this segment to maybe, we'll gauge like 10-ish minutes, just because we do have 3 other pretty substantive presentations to get to. We have folks here that need to present and need to debate and deliberate, and then we get to more routine policy items and things like that. So with that in mind, how many questions are we seeing? Any on what was presented, or nothing right now? Okay, so do we want to just give, I think we can just take an opportunity though to give a quick update on some of what we've been discussing since we met 3 weeks ago. At the last school committee meeting, we gave an update on the budget in general and PACE. So the PACE committee continues to meet. We had a meeting last night. We have an open house at Blanche Ames that is open to all of the Easton community and the school community. So that will be at 6 p.m. on Wednesday, the 26th. There will be, the way the evening will be structured is that when folks first arrive, there'll be various stations focused on types of subject matter or questions that people may have. Departments in town, so police, fire, DPW, taxation, schools, so we'll all be there just like we were for the open house that happened in January. There'll be, we're anticipating a 30-minute presentation to begin at around 6:15, 6:30ish, I think, followed by a formal Q&A, and then some time again for people to walk around and ask questions directly of department heads and town and school leadership. So please get the word out about that. Postcards went to every household in Easton, and it's just critically important that the public be aware of the budget crisis that we're facing and the kinds of difficult decisions that voters are going to have to make as the spring progresses, as the budget cycle continues, and ultimately to when we get to town meeting, because we will need to present a balanced budget, and the balanced budget right now has a $6.3 million hole in it across the town. And so closing that hole with an alternate budget.
The town budget.
Yeah, the town budget.
The town level.
Yeah, that's right, sorry, yes. So yeah, 6.3 million at the town level with an undetermined allocation between the school side and the town side for that. But it is in the millions of dollars. And then to close that gap would require, either we're gonna balance the budget by cutting $6.3 million of expenses, over 80% of which is people, or propose an override, or some combination of the two. So those discussions will continue over the next few weeks. Did you want to add anything else to that?
No, just that the PACE meetings are quite long and there's a lot of information on them. But if anybody is looking for information about schools, we certainly encourage you to reach out to the central office. We will provide any information that anyone has about schools because it might be difficult to find. There's just so much information on the PACE website. And I would say the same of my colleagues, the chiefs of police and fire, the community health director, Connor Reed, the town administrator. Everyone wants to provide information, so please do not get discouraged if there's a lot of information on the website. We are happy to give direct information for any questions that anyone might have. And so PACE, as Jen indicated, has determined that there is a problem. It is a revenue issue for the town, and they are talking about whether an override will be recommended to the town or not as a result of their work. And so we encourage people to pay attention to that, because it has an impact on people, obviously. Whether it passes or not, it has a significant impact. And so we encourage people to pay attention to the trajectory of that. And in terms of timelines, just sort of from a business point of view, there are very specific guidelines that a town has to follow. And so if there were even to be an override presentation to the town, it probably wouldn't be until a May town meeting. So it should not be surprising that since the school department has to have a balanced budget with the school committee in April, we need to come to a balanced budget with the information we have right now. And as of today, that's a $6.3 million deficit at the town level, which the school department is going to be expected to take on multi-million dollars of that. And so that is absolutely going to result in reductions across the board, because we are about 97% salaries or fixed costs being utilities, transportation, things that are fixed. And so we don't have latitude or anything to cut. We've been cutting slowly for several years in many different areas, down to the level of paper and how many printers we have. So we've really gotten it to a razor's edge. And at this point, it's a revenue issue of keeping up with inflation and growth in the country.
Some just high-level timeline of next steps that we discussed at PACE last night. As mentioned, we have the open house at the end of the month, and we do hope that we have strong turnout, good conversations, and get direct feedback from residents about what they're feeling, what their questions are, what they want us to prioritize, what they value, what they envision for what the town looks like going forward in terms of the services that we're able to offer. The PACE committee will meet, I believe it's the following week, I haven't looked, anyway, we'll meet again after that and finalize a recommendation, and that will go to the select board at the end of March. The select board is the body that needs to propose an override if they choose to, if that's the recommendation, and if they choose to go ahead and do that. So, so that would happen, that information would be made to the select board in late March. And then our annual school committee budget hearing, which has to be publicized in advance.
Goes in the newspaper every year.
Goes in the newspaper. Yeah, so it's a legal requirement as part of the budget process in Massachusetts that school departments have to have a public budget hearing. So right now we're anticipating scheduling that for our early April meeting, and then the school committee would meet subsequent to that and vote on the final balanced budget recommendation. And then the remainder of the process is that there's a joint meeting among the select board, the finance committee, and the school committee. That will happen the last week in April, tentatively. We're looking at the schedules now. And from there, that will finalize what gets put on the warrant for the town meeting. From a mechanics perspective, we've learned through PACE that at town meeting, they have to present a balanced budget by law. We have to present a balanced budget, but we can present a contingent budget, again, if an override were recommended. And so that could be presented at town meeting if the select board chooses to do so. So that would need to get voted on at the town meeting as well. If that gets passed, then the final step to approve an override is a special election, and the select board has to call for that 35 days ahead of the election. So if we waited until town meeting to vote on and finalize a dollar amount that's approved by voters at the meeting for an override, the select board could schedule an election, which would happen later in June. They could, in theory, schedule that election earlier so that the vote happens closer to town meeting. However, if voters at town meeting elect a different amount of money than the select board put forth in that election when they schedule it, you got a problem, it won't work. So there's significant risk to scheduling an election ahead of the town meeting voting on the dollar amount to move forward with. So just, it's a lot, the takeaway is it's a lot, and thankfully we have select board and town administrators who know all of this stuff inside out and backwards. So they're managing this overall really complicated time. And as always, we've mentioned this before, the whole budget itself is a moving target as information becomes solidified. As you heard, we don't know our entitlement grants until August. The state doesn't vote a budget until the summertime. So there are a lot of the items that go into that balanced budget that are assumptions. They're assumptions that are based on really good data, and they tend to be pretty close, but you will see.
They do tend to be very close, and I just wanna make sure that anybody doesn't take from that, maybe there'll be a $5 or $6 million swing.
Right.
We study these budgets extensively every year. We know what goes into them. We advocate for things to go into them. We know what things we may have asked for that didn't go into them. It never swings that much. And so, and the first iteration of the governor's budget was even more concerning than we were even hoping for. So I just want to make sure we're clear that we are in a very difficult, challenging position, and there will be announcements of layoffs, because some of what we have been hearing is it's not true, it's a scare tactic, it may not happen. It is happening. It is happening. In around April, it is happening. Last year we said it was gonna happen, it's still happening. So, not to sound harsh, but I think it's really not good if people think it might not happen. Just want everybody to have a realistic expectation. And it is at the end of the day, the select board, whether they put something out as for consideration or not for an override, if people are thinking, the select board gets to decide, so I don't have to worry because I think they want it, that is not true. If somebody thinks, well, the select board, they can just do whatever they want and I don't want it, that's also not true. So regardless of how you fall in that position, whether you want an override or don't want an override, it's very important that you stay engaged, because at the end of the day, the select board does not determine that, the taxpayers do.
Any, I'd say just a couple of, maybe 3 action items that I think are practical and doable. One is the PACE chair and co-chair, Tom and Nancy Donahue, who are amazing.
Tom Broussard and Nancy Dunn.
Yes, absolutely amazing, leading the PACE committee. They have recorded an info session with ECAT. It's available online. It's very informative, very concise, and a good way to get to. We've met for, I don't know, somewhere between 50 and 100 hours or something. Crazy amount of time and documentation on the website. If nothing else, please find that on ECAT and give that a watch. It's probably, I think, maybe around 20 minutes. The other thing is to pay attention, please, to the town administrator's budget memos. So he issued the first one. There's typically 2 or 3 of those throughout the budget season. So those get posted on the town website and provide a really good summary kind of where we are and what's changed since the last memo was put out. And then the last item is to please plan to come to the Blanche Ames open house later this month.
For people, again, who are watching that might think, well, there's probably a bunch of positions that can be cut, that is completely inaccurate. We have been running lean in every area. We have not been able to do the proactive measures to the extent that we believe students deserve and that we know our talented staff can provide and that they ask for. And so every position that's in the district is here intentionally and on purpose. And in some cases, we work really hard to get things down to low ratios for staff and students, for safe conditions for everyone. And our achievement has shown that. Our achievement is stellar, and it's because of the people that work here. And despite us being among the lowest per pupil recipients of funding. And so I need to really emphasize that any loss in this district is extremely significant, and the losses will result in very different services and programs for students. There's no question about it.
Thank you. Any questions before we move on to the next item? All right, thank you. Okay, so next up we have a discussion and vote on facility fees, which is related to the budget.
It is.
It all ties together.
So, of
Yes.
course, sorry.
Go ahead. Do you want us to move out, or is Tony just gonna
You
speak to?
can, I'm just gonna, I think he's just, I don't think he's doing a slideshow. No.
Okay.
Do you have a mic? So, I was just gonna say that it is directly related while Tony was making his way to the podium, because in addition to, in order to create a lean budget, one of the things that we do is look at revenue and how can we increase revenue. And we've been doing a lot of things over the last several years. In fact, we have part of the budget presentation, part of the presentation I did for, or we did, the leadership team did for the PACE committee, listed dozens upon dozens upon dozens of things that we've done to save money over the last several years. And so we are looking at everything. And among them, not being presented tonight, are fees for students to participate in sports and activities, fees for meals, for lunch, even though it's free right now. We've just heard it may not be in the future. No fee for lunch pays for the entire lunch, so that's why we always run in a deficit. And we do things like try to serve a la carte items or try to use for food service for catering things, because we want to try to build up the revenue there. And then finally, we're taking a look at all of our facilities. What can we change our rental fees to? What can we change who we charge for rentals fees and reasonably expect in the current market? And what spaces are we charging for? We have a whole new Blanche Ames building now that has some beautiful spaces that we can charge revenue for people to use. We have to be careful though, because the building was built by the generosity of the taxpayers, and so there are tiers of use where taxpayers are allowed to access facilities because their taxes paid for the facilities. And so we have different tiers of payment and different services that go with it. We have tried in the past to take on as many of those expenses as possible, but in the current fiscal climate, that is impossible. And so we need to charge for people that are using the facilities at a fair price, as fair as we can to still get that. If we charge too much and people don't come, that obviously doesn't help our revenue challenges. And so Tony Kopaz is our Director of Facilities and Operations and has worked really tirelessly on not only the fee structure, but the entire document to really tighten up the legal aspects of it. He's been working hand in hand with our attorneys. He has a redlined version for the school committee that's like 30 pages long, but that's because so much of it has been cut and put in. We wanted you really, Tony made a concerted effort to show you exactly what changed, because you may not have been really familiar with the former setup of it. And do you need a red line?
I don't know, I'll see if there's
You
one
have-
in here.
there's one right there?
I have one right here. Thank you.
Sure. And it is going to be some changes for people in the community who have used the facilities for free or for a limited cost in the past, but we have no choice. So the less we earn, the more we have to cut, and our cuts are already insufferable. And so this is what we're moving to. Tony is going to go through some of the most salient changes with you, and if you have any questions, this is a first reading only. We are not necessarily looking at, typos or grammar or spacing, formatting, stuff like that. That comes later. We really want to get your, not that I'm saying there are any, Tony. We want to.
I'm sure there are.
Nancy
I
will
know
find them for you, don't worry.
When I do a draft, it has it, so just want to be clear, this is not a final draft. We're looking for feedback, we're looking for questions, how Tony may have come to some of these. Of course, he worked in very close contact with Jeff Benson, who runs our music programs, is familiar with a lot of those spaces, but also Mary McDonald, our AD, who's familiar with those spaces. Those are sort of the performance spaces and the athletic spaces are the ones that get used the most. And then he also worked with the principals to talk about other spaces and buildings that could be used. Obviously, we have some sensitive areas. We don't open every classroom to rental, for example, during the school year. So there are some spaces that can't be used, or we've learned from school leadership really shouldn't be used. And so this is our first pass anyway. Tony?
So, thank you. Yes.
Before we begin, I just want to make sure, is the microphone on? And maybe can you clip it so that our folks can hear you?
Or you can
All
hold
right.
it, whatever you.
Can you hear me? Yeah.
Okay,
All right.
great, thank
I
you.
tend to talk loud anyway. So I want to say thank you. And this is the first time in almost 20 years I am presenting it to a large group, never mind a group of teachers. Okay? Last time I presented, everybody was in a camouflage uniform. So, bear with me. So, as Dr. Ball said, I've taken a lot of time looking at this and worked with a lot of people. I think I started in October, trying to get everything done and to be able to present it to you. I want to point out that the last time this was looked at was roughly 2016. So you're going to see some things in the document. There are fields that we were only charging $15 for, right? That jumped up, well, that was increased to about $75. In the red line, you'll see some of the fees were already raised and then brought back down. I can become very aggressive, and working with the schools and with Mary, we came to an agreement that we shouldn't be trying to scare people away. Okay? That's my term, not anybody else's. So the last time looked at was in 2016. I also want to recommend that we look at this every 3 to 5 years as a plan, right? As you would do in business, okay? Because the economy is changing extremely fast, right? So we just can't look at this and say, okay, 10 years later, look at it again. The other thing I think is important is the fees can only be used to go back to maintain the areas that are being leased. The attorney told me, do not use the word rental, use the word lease, okay? So it can't go to anything else other than the repair or supporting that area that's being, right? So if we have a problem with the floor in the gym, we can use it for that, okay? That's a small example. You have 2 documents. You have the red line as mentioned. And what I really want to point out is that we are going to be charging everybody. That's town rec, anybody who thinks they are part of town rec and you're a softball group, you're going to be charged. The police department, if they want to use space, unless a good reason of being able to be overridden, people are going to be charged. Okay? We don't have the funding to maintain our spaces, our rental spaces, just through an operation operational budget, okay? So I did notice on page 2 of the actual document that down in the application review, under item 2, it's supposed to go, all of the applications are supposed to go to the school committee to sign off on. I'm going to go in with an olive branch and assume you're not gonna wanna do that. So that language will change. I don't have language in my head right now for it, but once I get it.
Director of Facilities and
Director of
Operations.
Facilities and Operations, okay. Well, I wasn't, okay, works for me. Anyway, I think, I don't know if you had the time to look at it, to digest the crossouts, because there's so many, I don't know what would be important to you or not what's important to you. So if you'd like, I can just jump into the fees that we're presenting for you to approve at some point.
Yeah, I think we can start there, for
Okay.
sure. Yep.
So on page 11 of the document that we're presenting to be the facilities use document going forward, you'll see it's all broken out by school and all the fees that go along with them. It should start with Blanche Ames. So you'll see the spaces at BA that we're looking at renting. I've worked with every principal on the spaces that they want to rent. All classrooms, you'll see are $40 for a tier 1, which is a not-for-profit or non-profit organization. And then the tier 2s are all your organizations that are profit.
And just for me to clarify, Tony, you
No,
didn't
that's
say
fine.
anything incorrectly, but when you say classrooms, the principals have identified certain classrooms.
Yes.
They can't just rent any
They
classroom.
just can't rent it. So we used to just have it as classrooms, there's the fee. I felt it was very important to break out what classrooms we're renting and the cost, and you'll see that throughout the whole document. Because you're gonna be able to go onto the website, our school website, go to the either athletics or to the facilities operations website, and be able to pull it down and see it, and see exactly what's there. Right now, it's 2 documents. This is one document, because what I found is people calling me saying, well, what do I do? And they've already rented space. You have to call the school first. So our email in the document, and they get the directions. So now it's all in one, so they should be able to find it. On the very top, so I jumped down to BA, custodial, cafeteria worker. You'll notice that stadium manager is highlighted. Stadium manager we never had before. Talking with Mary and Kelly, it came down to that there's things that we need to have somebody do that needs to oversee this during events. Okay, we've had questions of, can we rent the press box? Well, no, at the time we didn't. So, as we talked about, if we're gonna rent the press box, we're gonna rent the scoreboard, we need somebody who can manage this. And that's how that came about. So, you cannot lease the field without having a stadium manager.
This was modeled after what we've had for a very long time in the Dalrymple Auditorium, which is a house manager. So there has always been a house manager fee. If some organization wants to use the auditorium because there's sensitive equipment in there, they needed to have a house manager to manage that. Now, if we're going to rent sensitive equipment, technology at the stadium, it requires the same oversight.
So you're also gonna notice that we have parking spaces down there to rent as well. We had 2 requests this year. The first was during the election. Somebody wanted to sell cookies, so fine, whatever, I don't know, $35, $50 an hour, whatever it was I charged. So I said, what a great little revenue. Then I had the principal at BA say, hey, there's a coffee truck wants to come in, can we do that? Sure, one space, $50 an hour, whatever it was. So it's little things like that. The other, you're going to find on page 16. I think I got my pages mixed up, but you'll find that within the document, chairs and tables. We get a lot of requests for chairs and tables. They get broken, and we're not charging for somebody to use them to go get new ones. So a chair for nonprofit is $3. A chair for profit is $5. A banquet table for nonprofit is $15. For profit is $20. Instead of fixing it, we're just gonna charge it, and we'll go buy another one.
We also used to tell some organizations that if they needed a custodian and it was during regular custodian hours, we wouldn't charge them for it. What happens is that takes away from what the custodian can do in their regular job duties. So now people will be charged the custodian rate. So none of the charges that would fall upon the school department, whether it's a custodian or a house manager or the stadium manager, or whether they need to use equipment, whether they want a cafeteria worker there, all of that's gonna be paid directly by the leaser. By the person who leases.
Yes.
There is no
Right.
cost to the district.
I am noticing, I don't know what happened, but it was in there, the tables and chairs.
Last page.
Yep.
It's on page 16,
Page 16, okay.
down the bottom.
Oh, there it is. All right. The other thing we're gonna charge for is the projectors, the pickleball, tennis, and lighting. So we get a lot of requests for the lighting for the football field, right? That's the easy part. But we haven't been charging for pickleball or basketball. So that's all listed out, and that'll be charged out at, stadium is $50, for nonprofit, profit is $75, so forth and so on. And the rental for pickleball and basketball and tennis is hourly by the court itself.
Do you wanna talk about the actual tiers? Or is
Yes.
that coming? I don't wanna
Yeah.
cut you off,
No.
but, I think it's important to know
Yep.
that we have a lot of Easton Public Schools activities, and those, people may be wondering, well, wait a minute, do we have to pay for the tennis team to use the tennis court? So maybe talk about the tiers for the fee structure and who will be responsible for paying what.
So when it comes to the tiers, as I mentioned in the beginning, we're looking at charging everybody, right? So education will always come first. If somebody, any tier wants a space and a school wants it for something, they're gonna get bumped if they're already there, or we're gonna tell them they can't have it for that day. Okay,
School is
that-
first and not charged.
Yes,
Mhm.
yes. Any school event for any area that we could lease, it doesn't get charged. So your tier one is all your not-for-profit organizations. And you'll see down in there on item F, anybody that is renting the stadium shall have a stadium manager. Any item D, events sponsored by organizations, recreational leagues, or ad hoc community groups that are open to all youths will be charged. What I found is that a lot of the groups will say we're part of rec, and they're really not. They use the rec website for one best, and it's easy for me to remember, is rec girls softball. I'll just say I went to do an invoice, I got a phone call saying, we don't pay, we've never paid, even when I was the president of the organization. Okay, thank you very much. I'm not gonna charge you right now. We are losing a lot of money. I have a folder, it's a lot of money that we're losing.
And paying
And
from our
paying
operating
operating
budget
staff,
for
yes.
wear and tear and damage.
Yes. So we're really trying to zero in and making sure that we are charging a reasonable rate and capturing everybody that should be paying for our space.
Lauren, did you have a question?
Thank you, Tony. My question is, when things are listed only for per day, what if they need, is that just a one-time cost, even if the leasee needs it only for an hour or two?
Yes, it's a one-time fee. So what pay, let me take a look at what you're looking at. Yep.
So specifically, I am looking at the items at Blanche
Yes,
and the items at the middle school.
so let's just say, let's
It
say,
seems like the high school is all per hour, but RO is also per day.
hold on.
So Blanche, RO, the middle
Right,
school
so
are all
it's-
per day.
Yeah.
Anything in the high school
So
is per hour.
there are some things on the athletic side that are per hour. When you're looking at the school itself, let's just say room 109, at the high school, it's 40, it's a day. It's one day for $40,
Oh, okay, I didn't get that far. Okay.
okay? I just flipped there. So there's an organization that comes in and rents the rooms. I think it might be like a 6-month deal. And we don't charge an hour for that. It's just a flat rate of $40 for the rooms. It's the fields that we decided to charge hourly. In the parking lot.
Why the field versus other places?
Sorry?
Why the fields and not the
Why the
others?
fields are?
The fields are, oh, sorry, go
No,
ahead.
go ahead.
The fields are a lot more expensive to take care of and to use. If we were to charge a daily rate, we would have to charge the maximum. Whereas if somebody wants to use it for a game or for a couple of hours, it's more affordable for them and we are still able to get that revenue.
And you can book
And you can
multiple,
book multiple
back-to-back
activities in one day.
for different teams, say.
So Global Child, I believe it is, they are in the BA, I forget what other school, and they look for just having rooms, right? But they do it almost, I believe it's just about the whole year. And that, again, trying to be fair, if you did it by an hour for a classroom and you're 6 months, that's gonna be probably $10,000, $20,000. So we just charge by room, the spaces inside the schools by day. And that hasn't changed, that did not change from all the prior documents of how we've been doing it, how the district's done it.
Okay. Maybe I'm just thinking of an organization particular that's in my head, but I feel that charging for the hour for field and for everything that is not inside of the school is more favorable to athletics, and it's not equitable to non-sport.
So I can tell you,
Because
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Because I feel like could be organizations in town that service our students indirectly, although they're not part of the school, but they are, nonprofits that are extracurricular activities for our students that our students attend. this cost structure looks to me like it's going to price them out of town, and that's not good for our students.
For classrooms, you mean?
No, I'm not. No, I'm not looking particular at a classroom, but I'm looking at per day. Charging per day when something is just for an extracurricular activity for an hour or two, and it's over a course of several sessions. That's
But we're
gonna
not
price.
right, I see what you're saying. We're not charging a day rate. We're really charging the hourly rate, but letting them use it for the day.
Let me ask a question that I think might help a little bit. Today, organizations that are using our buildings, is the rate structure still a per day rate structure? Like, have we changed the rate structure of per day?
In the
versus per hour?
classrooms, it's been per day rate, it's always, yes, it hasn't been we haven't changed.
It's always been a per day rate,
Yeah.
okay.
The change is changing the stadium, et cetera, to hourly rates. We've always charged a day rate for the classrooms, and this maintains that.
And this is where I was wrong, we also did hourly for all the fields in the past. And I went back into the documents when I thought I was right, but I was wrong, and we do charge hourly for all the fields.
So Lauren, would it be fair to say that you're looking at something like maybe the EMS cafeteria that used to be $200 for a profit organization and $100 for a nonprofit, and that is going up substantially? And you may have an organization that's using that only in the evening or after school for an hour versus, renting it for an entire day to host an event or a production.
100%, yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, so I wonder if we could maybe consider.
I'm sorry.
Yep, go ahead.
Part of this was for you, so you could look at the rates
Yep.
and make recommendations to either change it,
Yep.
not change it, or change it to X.
Yeah,
Right.
yep, yes, I think that's good feedback, so maybe something like that, that's, weekday, after school, limited use for X number, maybe, if they're using it for under a minimum number of hours, there could be an hourly rate, and then over X number of hours would just be a day rate, so maybe we could consider something like that for some of the bigger spaces that are more expensive, because I hear your concern, you don't wanna price out a community organization that's,
Absolutely, that's
yeah.
right. And part of, we also looked at other neighboring towns, and I can tell you they were all over the place. And I'll also tell you that we looked at Sharon, and I can tell you that Sharon modeled yours 4 years ago, 5 years ago. Right, so we did look at everything.
So to drill in a little bit more on that point, do we feel that our rate increases are commensurate with other towns around us, or are we the first to do this type of increase, and will that potentially result in some organizations going to other schools in the area?
Also, I would say no, I will tell you that when I first did the fields and classrooms at the high school, put a one in basically in front of everything. I had $175 per hour. So no, I don't. I was aggressive.
Especially based on the quality of our facilities.
Right.
They're a lot better than
Than a lot of in the neighboring towns.
most neighboring districts, and so they are more expensive to take care of as well. And a lot of, if not most of, even the not-for-profit organizations, they charge for participation. And so we understand that it is going to be up to them to charge students $5 more for registration, or children in the town, or adult athletes. And so we understand that's going to go to the user, but it's the user or it's our operating budget.
Understood. Do we have a sense of how much money we anticipate this yielding to?
no, because we're not sure. Tony also has set up a system that's gonna make it a lot easier to advertise and let people know. We have a lot of unused spaces and never used spaces. And so we're hoping that even if we have a bit of a drop in participation, we're going to see that increase in the use of the other spaces. People are tending to compete for the same spaces and not realize, for example, that VA has a full gym now, something like that. Now we have more spaces to offer, and we're hoping we can schedule more people in them.
I do have a question about the tiers. So the classifications, Group B, which, so just the way it reads, so school-related, town government, and community groups.
I had a question about that as well.
Yeah,
for
because
you guys.
I can hear a community, I could imagine a community group. I could imagine there being a not-for-profit that says, we are a community group, why are you charging us? So what is a community group?
I
under this
actually, before
definition?
even Tony answers that, I was going to actually challenge you to think about if you wanted to charge community groups and town rec, just a different rate for that than a not-for-profit or a for-profit. That's entirely for you to consider, but community rec also charges participants. And so there is a revenue there, and we are subsidizing that in some cases, which we have always wanted and tried to do because some or even a lot of the students are our kids, but not all of them are. And again, it's coming from our operating budget. So it is a balancing act, and we do ask you to consider how you want us to balance that.
Yes, so what did you have in mind with the term community group? Because I see, you know, in tier C, as proposed, it specifies Town of Easton recreation-sponsored youth groups.
So that
Yeah.
bold right there,
Yep.
that was there. So what I would have to say is a clarification for a community group to me would be like the tricentennial. They're not getting charged for the field to do their things here. I got a call from someone and they want to do, as a community, do a Halloween parade, and they want to come out of Blanche Ames and go down those streets. I would look at that as a community group. They're standing there, they want a couple of those flea market tents on the grounds. I would look at that as a community group. If we want to really define what that is, we can.
I think we're going to have to because people will self-identify.
Yeah, I'm a
Yes.
community group.
Well, and
Yeah.
that's what I think we had the problem with, so, you know, Easton Youth Girls Softball. You're not part of the rec, you're just using their website.
And should there be a distinction between, I don't know, Easton Youth Lacrosse and the rec department's basketball program? Yeah. Oh, go ahead, Lauren. Lauren, you had a question?
Yeah. Can I ask us all to just, when we discuss this and when we decide on this, that it includes more than just athletics of community events, so not just rec, which is primarily athletics, that there's other extracurricular activities that our students and our children of the community benefit from.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. So this is a first reading?
Yep.
Okay, because a discussion and vote on it. So it would, for me, be very helpful to Lauren's point, just to get any kind of census you have on who all is using these spaces, just so I have the right framing of who's impacted and then how they would fit into these tiers. Because I'm just running through a number of scenarios in my head of different organizations and groups, but if we have some way to provide a summary of that for us as part of the information, I think that would be incredibly helpful.
No problem.
request the same thing. So sample of who's using now, and then we can sort of get a sense for that, that's what that means, and that maybe can help us with better
Yes.
defining.
We will get that right away because we are very interested in letting people know as soon as possible about any changes. Because anybody that's planning something for the summer now is planning now. And our intention, if possible, is to make this effective as of July 1st. And I know that people planning things for the summer are already planning them, so we want to give as much advance notice to people as possible without rushing you, of course.
Do you have, so yes, that would be great, I think, even for next time. Do we have things that are booked already for the summer? And is our plan to leave them grandfathered in with the current fee structure?
So the only thing that's booked that I recall is from the rec department themselves.
There's no
It's
camp.
some type of.
No, we have all year since the fall with any leaser, whatever, any person that has used spaces, on every invoice Tony has sent has been a disclaimer that we are changing our rates as of July 1st.
Okay.
So whether they're in there or not, everybody has been notified
Okay.
that we are changing rates. Not what they are, of course, because you need
Right.
to make your decision, but it has said that all throughout the year, and it's on the website too, I think, the
It's
actual.
it's on our website, and, yes, you're correct, any invoice that went out has that statement on it. And then once approved, adopted, approved, I have a list, a report of all the users.
Okay.
And the plan was to just give them an email blast of here's the rates, send the document with it, and that way they all know.
And if you can get that list of users to Lynn so that she can send it to them ahead of time, they can review it before the next school
I
committee
should be able to get it tomorrow,
Yep.
not on.
That would be great.
One other question, I know we are not alone in the challenges that we are facing financially at this moment, and other districts are experiencing similar challenges. I've been trying to stay abreast of it, I know others have been as well, just to see what others are doing. Are you finding that are you all hearing that other districts are also looking to increase their fees? Is this one of the items?
Everybody's looking at everything. I have one colleague that now is charging $1,800 per season per sport for students to participate because they can't afford to run their programming. Obviously, that's not something we want to get to, but it was that or cut their sports. So yes, some astronomical fees are going on out there right now.
And I guess the other question I had related to that is, I know we mentioned Town Rec as one of the groups, and that's something we need to make a decision on as to what Town Rec charges. They are also within our budget that is challenged,
And we
probably-
told Town Rec about the potential of changing tiers already.
Okay, and so that was, the path I was going down is they are both aware and understand the situation, and do we have any idea if they are looking at changing fees for their fields? Because we can move from one field to another in town. Do we know anything about that from town?
I don't know.
I don't know if you know anything from Pace.
Yeah, no,
Okay.
I don't believe that's come up.
Okay.
I know their rep did meet Tuesday night, so we can ask for.
It was more of a,
Yeah, I know they're looking, not a secret that they're planning to not operate the town pool.
Yeah.
Because it runs at a deficit. You can't run a program at a deficit when you're losing staff. Yeah, so they're looking at all that, but yeah, we can check into them. It's a great point.
Anything else?
Jackie, are you on? I know we're seeing Lauren, but,
Yep, no, I'm here.
okay, great. Did you have any questions or comments?
No, I appreciate the points that Lauren raised, and my copy isn't redlined, so it's a little harder for me to follow. But I need a little more time to look through all of the pricing. There's a lot of pricing on here, but I appreciate, Tony, all the work that you're doing on this.
likewise.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tony.
Thank you, Tony.
next item on the agenda is a discussion and vote on the updates to the Oliver Ames Program of Studies.
So Mrs. Kavanaugh is here for the next two items on the agenda, the first being the OA Program of Studies. And she has a brief presentation to show you. And Mrs. Kavanaugh, do both of these have a presentation to show?
Yes, the
Okay, so we'll
graduation
have you.
requirement has just one slide.
Okay, that's fine. So that way you can go and even potentially vote from there and then come back after both of them?
Sure.
Thank you.
Have you duct taped yourself?
I've duct taped myself.
Lovely,
Yes,
thank you.
Ready to go.
program of studies proposal for all of our aims for the school committee's work this evening.
Thank you very much. I'm excited to share with you some of the changes we're bringing to our program of studies. I know over the past few years, this presentation has been a little bit lengthy as we've kind of looked through the program of studies and made adjustments that just clean up, like we talked about, needing to be updated. This presentation is going to be a little bit shorter. You're not going to see as many changes as you've had in the past, which is a good thing because we're making progress as we work through it. So you're going to see a bunch of language changes, and then you're going to see a few course proposals for next year. So to start, these are the language updates. The first, in the opening, you're going to see that we updated personnel. You're going to see that we updated the strategic plan, the new strategic plan. You're going to see that now that we've increased our early college credit options, there is an asterisk next to every course that has early college as an option, and that's outlined in the opening of the document. And then finally, is the language around competency determination for the class of 2025 that I presented to you last week as a recommendation for the program of studies this year only. In graduation requirement, that's where you're going to find that competency determination. In English, we've updated the introduction to be just more relevant to what we currently do in our English department. In math, you're going to see some just course description updates in calculus, particularly in pre-calc and college calc. They cover trigonometry, and they want to make sure that that's in the program of studies, that that's an area that falls under calculus, particularly because when we have students who are looking to take courses over the summer in order to advance in calculus and kind of skip a level, we want to make sure that those college courses also have trigonometry in their course syllabus as it's on our mid-years and finals that they need to take in order to skip a level of math. And then finally, we have updated language in PE health and wellness under our unified physical education requirement, and that's that we're asking students who would like to be in that to have a recommendation from the teacher about their candidacy for that class. Do you have any questions on those language updates? No? Okay. So next is the actual revisions to course offerings. In business and applied arts, we added a yearbook course 2 years ago, and that is thriving, and we have students who want to expand their ability and their exposure to editing yearbooks, so we're adding a second section. Now, it'll meet during the same block. Yearbook 1 and Yearbook 2 will meet together, but people in Yearbook 2 will be yearbook editors and will oversee the Yearbook 1 students and train them, which I think is a great, especially with our early college and career work that we're doing, is a great opportunity for leadership just built right into the schedule. And then we haven't offered advanced wood or advanced metal in several years. We now have our capstone projects, which is much more student-centered. They pick their interest, they learn the skills, and build the artwork or the woodworking and metalworking that really meets their interests and their passions. In English, Kristen Marani, the department head for the English department, did a survey of 10th and 11th graders around what they would be interested in taking in their senior course electives. It's something that we haven't really reviewed in many years, and discovered that not surprisingly, our interests have changed. So we removed the courses under removed: contemporary fiction and analytical writing, humanities and dystopian literature. 2 of those haven't even run for the past few years due to lack of interest in enrollment. And then we removed MCAS Prep. It's a course that we actually currently don't offer. We have a study skills course in English, and we infuse the MCAS Prep into that. But secondarily, if MCAS is going to no longer be a graduation requirement, there really isn't a need for that course. What we've added is she gave them several options, and the ones with the most interest were sports and literature, children's literature, and media literacy. So children's literature, I'm very excited about. It'll be a study of children's literature, but also the production of children's literature, and we're going to partner with Blanche Ames and RO in order to have those students go to those schools and learn from both the teachers and the students in that work. I'm very excited.
I'm sorry, will it be part of the child care pathway ultimately?
I'm not sure. Okay. I'll look into that, yeah. And then the media, so we used to offer a class called Journalism and Media Literacy, and it was a semester elective. We've split that up. Media literacy has become an essential skill for our students to get. They consistently see information on social media, We're trying to teach them to question what they see, to understand the perspective that it comes from. They monitor their screen time and how they're spending their time on their phone and their computer. So we've made that a separate semester-long elective, all of those additions, and we've taken journalism out as a year-long elective. And our student newspaper, The Olympian, will be run through our journalism class along with all of the curriculum that they'll be exposed to. And that will be open, so the semester courses under AD, those are for seniors, opposite their senior English class, which is a required course. The journalism class is a year-long elective for all grades. In math, we removed foundations in algebra and geometry A. It's a course that hasn't run in years. We do have foundations-based math courses for students who are accessing algebra and geometry at like a lower level than our inclusion students. And then we removed MCAS math, low enrollment, and we have been able to use our H block to support students who are struggling in math in order to gain the skills that they need in order to find success on the MCAS. In music, Department Head Mr. Benson removed some electives that I have not run. That's beginner music, music theory, Theater 2, and unified music. In social studies, we added back the applied learning project. I don't know if you remember this from last year, but we're gonna offer it every other year to juniors and seniors. So it's the same course that used to be called Senior Project, where students do practicum hours outside of school and do a research project. And then finally, I'm really actually very proud of this, the special education department came together and rewrote the course description for what was formerly their academic support. And if you see those changes, the course description used to be very teacher-centered. The teacher liaison will do this, the teacher will do this. And our goal is for all of our students to gain independence and do that work themselves. So we've rewritten it to be what the students will do in their academic support. But now we're changing the name to Learning Center because, again, academic support is what the teacher's providing. Learning Center is the space and what the students are doing in order to just increase their academic skills and meet the goals on their IEPs. That's everything. It's probably the shortest program of studies presentation I've done since I was hired here.
Committee members, does anybody have questions or comments? Maybe start with Jackie and Lauren, either of you?
Thank you, Mrs. Kavanaugh. That was a great presentation. I really appreciate the change in the language for the Learning Center. I think it really describes the course much better. I really appreciate that change, so thank you.
Thank you. And thank you to the team. Honestly, we met as a group. It was a team effort of like 14 of us in a room wordsmithing. It was a really productive meeting, and I'm just really proud of how the way they came together and put that language together.
Lauren, did you have any feedback or questions?
No.
And Nancy or Kelly?
I just had one. If you go, first of all, thank you for that. And I am thrilled you're offering the music class. Someday, I hope that's mandatory. If you go back for just a moment to the slide you had, I just wanted to make sure, sorry, not the language updates, but the courses. As you were going through it, I think I heard, but I just want to make sure, were there any of these that are currently being offered? I know that MCAS math you said was being covered through H-Block, which makes perfect sense. Anything on the English side that was currently being offered but is just being removed because of low enrollment versus not being offered? I was getting a little confused on which ones are running versus not.
I get that. So right now, I'd have to open the program of studies. I believe there's one section of dystopian literature, but I'd want to check and see. The rest of them are not running and haven't run for years. Okay. But I would want to check that. Our detective fiction class is probably one of our most popular ones that I know has several sections. But no, I don't. I double check. I will double check for you before the end of the meeting so that you know.
It's fine. I was just trying to get if it's maybe just one. I was just trying to understand how many of them were being currently run versus we're cleaning up ones that have not been run.
Yes, it's mostly cleaning up.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no, thanks for asking.
My only question is on the unified music exploratory. That was something we'd added fairly recently, right?
Yeah, that was added probably 2 years ago. No one enrolled in it 2 years ago.
Okay.
And at this point, we are the numbers of students who participated in that as our students with special needs, that has decreased as well, particularly because many of them are either in other inclusion classes or are out working, are in the transitions program. It is something I do want to consider bringing back someday, to be honest with you. Like, we were really excited about that course, and it was a struggle to get the enrollment numbers that we needed to make it like a buddy course.
But to be clear, students who are in special education programs have the opportunity to participate in music classes that are inclusion-based with support, et cetera.
Yes, just like any other course, they can enroll in chorus, theater, band, orchestra, absolutely.
And then sort of along the same line, I too really appreciated the rewrite and refocus of the Learning Center. I think I've given you some feedback on that, where, you know, one of my kids basically babysat one period a day without actually progressing in skills. So I think that'll really help with defining expectations for students and families that.
The intention behind the course.
Exactly. It's good stuff there. Great. Thank you. Okay. I also, and I know we're going to talk about the graduation requirements, but where they do reference the program of studies, I had, what was it? One second, to find it. All right, so my concern here, and we can, I don't know, actually, you know, I can hold this until we actually talk about this, and we'll just, I'll refer back to it. So why don't we do that instead?
Okay. I wanted to ask you if you want to review graduation requirements, yes, and then vote on both at the end, since that language is the.
Yeah, I think because there's an overlap, that would make sense.
Okay. There's no dystopian literature running right now. There's no dystopian literature running, so all of those courses are not running.
So all of them, thank you.
Yeah.
I'm always conscious of who's missing out on what versus, we're just cleaning up.
Yes.
Thank you.
So just to orient any audience watching or here, the graduation requirement policy, IKF, needs to be changed because it included passing the MCAS. Mrs. Kavanaugh presented at the last school committee meeting, so this is a second reading of this policy and a potential vote on the policy, and because it's referenced in the program of studies, we're gonna take a look at this one, perhaps vote on this one, and then if the school committee would then like to vote on the program of studies, they can do that because it includes this language. Mrs. Kavanaugh.
Yeah. So we reviewed this last week, and there were two specific areas that we wanted to make adjustments and for me to return with recommended language. The first was number 6, ensuring that our alternate PE course that students have the option to take in junior and senior year does count as passing. So I met with Director of Guidance Susan Mancuso, and yes, students apply for that alternate class. They turn paperwork in, and they get a pass or fail based on whether or not they met the alternate PE requirement at that time. So I wanted to keep the language the same. I also looked at a lot of other districts that have alternate PE, and they have the same language in their program of their graduation requirements in their school committee policy. So I felt confident that that language is appropriate. And then the second change was the addition, if you could scroll down, was the addition of the expectations for the class of 2025 in number 12, and a statement naming that the school committee is reviewing this policy for future classes.
So, I guess before I go, any school committee members had any questions, comments, feedback?
I thought we had talked about requiring the taking of MCAS but not passing. Am I remembering that incorrectly?
We discussed it at length for the class of 2026 and beyond. But I think my understanding from the end of our last meeting is that this language would give us time to further that conversation and make a really informed decision, and at least be able to let the class of 2025 know at this point whether or not they need the MCAS to graduate, because we're still doing retests for those 7 students who haven't passed yet.
Okay.
But that the reason that this second sentence, this policy is under review for the classes of 2026 and beyond is because we need to continue that conversation.
Okay. Thank you.
So with this sort of influx situation that we're in, my only concern was the number 9 replacement to meet the school competency determination as outlined in the program of studies, and then you go to the program of studies and it says,
Yes,
you
it
need to
doesn't
pass
say,
MCAS.
yes.
And then you come back to number
Right.
12 and it says you don't need to pass MCAS.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if maybe we could refine number 9 with add a note that, for the class of 2025 only, the MCAS requirement in the program of studies is waived. That way we're not adjusting the language in the program of studies in case we retain that as a requirement for 2026 and going forward.
Well, we can't, I don't know if we can retain it because it says pass.
We can.
Oh,
The
yeah,
school
right, okay.
committee can, yeah. Yeah, so this would just leave it unmodified until we figure out the longer term thing, which I'm comfortable with, because this program of studies is in effect not for the class of 2025. So, somebody looking at this when it's published isn't the student who's focused on graduating right now, but just in case, given that it's in the existing program of studies and the future program of studies, maybe just add that a little clarity to item 9.
Add clarity or just not put item 9 in yet?
Well, I think we still, let's see, hold on.
Because one of the things to consider is that whatever is adopted for the class of 2025 will then be true for anyone that didn't receive graduation in years prior.
Yes.
I'm sorry, can you read that one more time?
The new law
Yep.
states that anyone who did not get a graduation, a diploma, because they didn't pass the MCAS, can now apply to Oliver Ames to get a diploma based on what competency determination looks like for the class of 2025.
Correct.
So if you graduated in 2000, didn't get a diploma, but you passed English 9, English 10, algebra, geometry, and physics, you can now say, I would like a diploma, and OA can issue you a diploma. The class of 2026 and beyond, that doesn't apply to those previous students who didn't graduate. It's just the competency determination for the class of 2025.
So just this 1 year?
Just this 1 year, yep. So that recommendation that I proposed last meeting, English 9, English, all of those 5 classes, those will be for the previous people who have a certificate of attendance. That will be their competency determination.
So, right now in the policy, if we eliminated number 9, the language in items 2 through 8 plus 10 aligns with what's in the program of studies, with the exception of the program of studies notes that science with a lab. And I think that's a little unclear actually, because it's like science, is it a lab? One of the 3 years they need a lab, so maybe.
Just take out the lab reference?
Well, I think we need that either in the policy or the program of studies, or both,
Yep.
if we are requiring at least one of the sciences be a lab science. So maybe for item 3 in the policy, past 3 year, or item 4, past 3 years of science, grade 9 to 12, including 1 year of lab science, at least 1 year of lab science. And then maybe the program of studies, change the parenthetical phrase to something a little more detailed, like including 1 year of lab science.
Okay, program of studies, science. I got that on it right now.
So I think if those items are all aligned, then item 9 would be redundant right now. we could eliminate it and maybe eliminate a potential lack of clarity. What do our policy experts think?
Oh, that sounds good. So you're gonna take it from 2 years to 1 on a 3-year. You have to take 3 sciences.
Yeah, yep,
And
so
just
3
one
years
of
of
them has to be a
science,
lab.
including 1 year of
Yeah.
lab
Okay.
science.
Okay, and I'm trying to process the change. So if we note in our program of studies, the graduation requirements includes passing the MCAS. But in this document, we remove the competency determination as required in the program of studies. We're just using what is in this policy, which gets the 2025 through.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
And then I would consider adding that number 9 back in once we make a decision about number 12 for the class of 2026 and beyond. So I'll just strike this out for now. Keep it as a placeholder for future conversations. Oh, you can't see it, but I struck out the 10 and 9.
Any other, I mean, obviously we'll need to have a more substantive discussion later in the spring about what to do going forward, but hopefully this gives the kids who are anxious to find out the info that they need and move on, so. Would Jackie or Lauren, any other comments before we move forward with voting on these 2 items?
I'm sorry, I just
Go
thought of
ahead.
something. If we remove number 9 to number 12, do we want to add language that they still have to pass the competency determination as outlined by the program of study, since that's nowhere in here? Because that's
Well-
what wouldn't be matching.
So I think the program of, so what's in the program of studies is, right, items.
Past English 9, 10.
I see your point. This no longer, well, it says pass all 4 years.
Yeah, so what would be the difference between, say, item 2 here, reading past 4 years of English grades 9 to 12, and the program of study saying English language arts 4 years?
It's not the English language arts 4 years, it's the competency determination under graduation requirements.
Yeah.
If you open my presentation, the first slide has a link to the program of studies. The first slide at the top. That is a link, we want to open it and go to graduation requirements. You can just search for it.
No, page 10. I thought it was page 10.
Scoot up. One more. So, scroll down. In red here, right, that specifically names the coursework covered on the MCAS, which is what you need to graduate in
Okay.
the state of Massachusetts.
Gotcha, that wasn't in the
That's not in
printed.
this.
Oh, it's not in your
we
printed
have.
packet,
Yeah,
I'm so
yeah, yeah,
sorry.
okay.
All right, there we go. That
Okay,
language.
That's key, yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm glad we figured that out. All right.
Yeah.
So this is that language that we discussed in my slideshow last meeting for the class of 2025 to meet the new competency determination.
I see, so, okay, so if we could keep 9 in, because it says meet school competence determination as outlined, and we specifically call out competence determination here, where we were reading that as the whole section.
Yeah,
So I
right,
was
yeah,
doing what you
yeah,
were
yeah.
doing,
Yeah.
the competence determination is now defined as just this piece, this block right here.
Yep.
Okay,
Yeah.
I now follow you.
So if we
Yeah.
keep.
So we can
okay,
just keep 9 in.
Keep
We
it,
can
but
just
do
keep it.
you think we should add clarity to number 9, the same clarity as is in number 12, just for the class of 2025? Because
Like
again,
just-
when you go here, it's, MCAS is mentioned with all of this.
But I think you're okay, can you go back, sorry, to the, yeah, it literally says
Oh, that's
competence
right,
determination,
that's right,
so I
yeah,
think
yeah,
we're
yeah.
okay,
I
because
gotcha.
it's literally that block where we said we use the sections, because there was
Gotcha.
nothing else.
I see what you mean, I follow you now.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
I agree with Kelly.
Okay, okay, I agree.
That
with
little
those.
red chunk that we couldn't see,
Yeah.
yeah, no difference in the world.
Okay. All right, I agree with that. All right, so then the only edits then are the 1 year of lab science.
Yep.
In both the policy and the,
The program of
The
Simmons,
program of
which I
Simmons.
updated as well.
okay. Okay,
Right above that.
Right
Yep.
here. Accept the noted edits.
yes,
I just want to help kids get.
yeah. Okay, all right, any further discussion on these, or are we ready to move them to vote? All right, so then, would somebody like to make a motion to accept the proposed changes to the OA program of studies with noted edits?
So moved, Percio?
Can we get a second?
Second Wiseman.
Roll call vote,
DeLuca, yes?
Wiseman, yes.
Star, yes.
Loomis, yes.
Percio, yes.
And then can I get a motion to approve the changes to graduation requirements policy IKF with noted edits?
DeLuca, so moved.
Percio, second.
Roll call vote,
DeLuca, yes?
Wiseman, yes.
Star, yes.
Loomis, yes.
Percio, yes.
All right, thank you.
Thank
Let me
you
know
for
if you'd
all
like
the
me
work
to
on
come
this.
back and talk more about graduation requirements.
Yes.
You
I
will
look
for
forward to hearing from you.
2026.
Yeah, we continue.
Ignite. That's a good one.
All right. Next item is a discussion and potential vote for the 2025-2026 district calendar. Dr. Cabral, you.
Are you keeping this out of order, or is my sheet out of order? My sheet's out of order, that's okay. No problem. Okay, calendar. This is a second reading and potential vote. We, as typical, removed one from consideration. We always provide three. We went over the differences between them. This is, Pruitt can go over them again if you'd like, or if you have any questions, we can entertain those.
I do just want to make one note from draft 3, the last date we did correct. So the last day of school, I think on the first presentation was June 16th. It would actually be June 17th, with then a fifth day of, a fifth snow day would be the 25th. Would you like me to review the differences between the two?
Sure, maybe a
One thing about the 25th, that would be the latest
Yes.
release we've had in several years. Makes me a little nervous.
2050.
Our
Yeah.
audience has to be.
Because that only
Yeah.
leaves 3 possible days for extenuating circumstances, and then we would have to do what I've done in my career before, which is go to school during posted vacations or on Saturdays, and I will just say, just that makes me a little bit nervous.
The biggest difference is the start date between the two calendars and the end date. So the start date in draft 1 has this, is prior to Labor Day weekend, and draft 3 has a start date after Labor Day weekend.
That's the only change.
Right.
The only difference
Right.
between the two.
Was there a, just a question, I don't remember, I don't know. So you have on draft 3, teachers' first day is Tuesday, September 2nd. Right, okay, never mind. And then the kids go 3, 4, 5. All right, got it.
No, draft, oh,
3.
yes,
Correct.
yes, I'm sorry.
You want to hear that, Claire?
Laura, did you have a question?
So, does anybody have any additional questions, or does anybody want to make a motion for one version or the other, or do we want to do a roundtable of thoughts, concerns,
So-
pros and cons?
We'll do a round table.
Okay.
And I'm just gonna say where Labor Day is September 1st. Let's just start after September 1st and hope for the best. It's so hot in August and the beginning of September anyway, like ridiculous. Even coming those couple of days in August, everybody's slipping on the waxed floors and, heat stroke and everything. Heat stroke, I'm exaggerating. But, I don't know, I feel like it's a nice calendar, and yes, it is the 17th. And if you have 2 snow days, now you're going in to that next week. But as you said, it can happen, but in the last, 2, 3, 4 years, what's it been, 1 snow day each year? So, that's what I'm going for.
I do want to note
Draft
also that I did send these 2 drafts to the EEA for
Oh, okay.
feedback, and I did not hear back from them.
Okay.
Any other, Kelly?
Sorry, I feel like we had talked a little bit about November, and had talked about just whether or not we could do anything with all of our various conferences and things being back to back and difficulty. Did we not end up having questions on that we were getting back to?
They gave us the answers already.
Okay.
We can repeat that if you want.
Nope, that's okay.
Well, they said that the transportation, it was
No.
kind of a nightmare.
For no,
What was the nightmare
about
last
November.
year?
It was having different,
Oh, the conferences, trying to get to different
the
schools.
November, the feedback we
That's
got
what it was.
from the administration was they would rather concentrate the days missing than keep disrupting different months.
Yeah, it's just a nightmare for working families.
Kelly, I'll take your kids.
I might take you up on that.
Okay.
I do find it is a very challenging for people who are working parents or hourly wage parents who are trying to cover all of that time, between Veterans Day being the same week. It's just really hard. So,
Do conferences still happen on Zoom if it's requested?
right, but the kids are half days, so you have to.
No,
cover
no, I
them.
get that, but I'm just saying, if you're working mom, dad, whatever, and you need to have a 15-minute conference,
Yes.
you don't have to leave your office, you can just do your Zoom and you don't have to leave work. Yeah, you do have to worry about your kids, but
You have to find childcare for the 11th, half a
Right.
day of 13th and half a day of 14th, and the high schoolers aren't available to.
you have to
either.
find it for what, the 11th?
Because the 11th is Veterans Day. But a lot of companies don't give Veterans Day off, so you have to cover childcare for Tuesday, half of Thursday, half of Friday. And the high schoolers aren't available to help you
No,
because they're not
I-
off those 2.
I get
So
that.
that was my question.
Right, that's good.
But it sounds like I thought at one point we had talked about whether we could move it to a different time period, but it sounds like
Well, I
the
think
answer was that we can't.
what it was last year, was it the 20th that got rolled in with the 13th?
Yeah, we got a ton of angry, upset emails from parents who
Right.
complained that
Couldn't
it
make it to all
was
of
too difficult to get to all of their
Yeah.
children's conferences.
Right.
They have kids in
And
multiple schools.
I thought in one year we had done one of them in December, early December, for the younger kids maybe, but.
We did, but there was feedback on that that's too late.
Too late.
It's way too late in the school year for a conference.
And I do know there's a lot of people that do like starting in August. I'm just a fan of after Labor Day.
Yeah.
But that's just me.
Yes, this is,
I'm only one
We'll
vote.
probably have a split vote today, so.
Oh, thank goodness,
Just
there's
A-okay.
5 of us.
Right, exactly. Kelly, did you have any other commentary? Okay. Lauren or Jackie, feedback, commentary? Do you want to advocate for one version or the other?
I don't really have a strong feeling either way. I'm kind of split on what to do. I'm interested to hear others' perspectives. And also, I know you probably told us this before, Dr. Cabral, but if you talk to the principals, is there one that they favor?
Draft 1. Yes, draft 1 is the one that they favor.
They like coming back to school in August. Well, they like the other people to join them because they're already there.
June has also been really
Yeah.
hot as
And-
well, but,
Well-
Mrs. Kavanaugh, did you, I don't
I
know.
was gonna say, just thinking about, and I know this is very specific to the high school, thinking about our AP students and our students who have to get as much content in as possible before a date that doesn't change. It is nice, it's nice to have those extra days at the start of the year, so that they can get as much content in before their exams.
And the feedback from the other principals is that that stamina runs low at the end of the school year, and so having more school days at the beginning is better than when they get to June.
Can you ask Marple what she thinks?
Oh, yes,
Please.
yes, I would,
Love to hear
Brendan,
from our
yeah,
students,
yeah,
actually.
what's your?
You can go ahead first, Brendan.
I mean, I'd have to look at them more in depth, but
Oh, very diplomatic.
That was very political.
You're going places.
You made him go first though, and that wasn't fair.
I'll remain neutral.
I was gonna say whatever lets us end earlier, only because I think I've come to appreciate, like, especially for like the seniors and like the snow day not really affecting anything when we, on like the day that we end, I think it made me appreciate early, like getting off of school early, and I think like wow, there would be some, well, like you would have to drag me to come into school like on August 27th, I think it would be beneficial to come out on the 12th of June.
Can I add? That was a good point about the stamina running low at the end of the year. So for that reason, I would support that draft too.
Okay, and Lauren, did we hear from you? And not to put you on the spot, you can, you can remain.
No, that's okay. I understand, I hear, and I respect all of the comments in the room. But I have heard overwhelmingly from parents who want their summer, and once kids are in school, summer's over, and regardless of if, you know, there's the long weekend of Labor Day weekend, summer's still over. So I am with Nancy and am going to vote for after Labor Day.
I think that's a great point, Lauren. There's a little bit of, it's a hard thing to discuss in my mind because we haven't had the after Labor Day start in so long. Like, is the stamina based on the number of days or the date on the calendar being June? I don't actually know the answer to that anymore, so.
So I'll say having kids who, let me think when we started. So I probably had kids in the district for a 20-plus year stretch. About half of them were pre-2015 years and half of them were post-2015 years. And the after Labor Day start, back when we were one of the few districts that were starting that late, suddenly feels ridiculously late when it's happening, right? It's like, you know, all of a sudden you're like, it's September 4th, why aren't my kids in school yet? Or September 2nd or whatever. You go to get school supplies, it's Halloween, you've missed it, everything's completely wiped out. It's like that last week of August changes and the whole world is back to school and you're like, why are my kids home? And then, you know, then you get to the end of June and other districts are out and, you know, people's summer plans have shifted, you know, they've shifted into summer gear. And again, you're kind of just watching the clock and the calendar going, oh my God, why are my kids still in school? So that was my feeling as a parent back when we used to have one of the latest start dates in the area pretty consistently. I was thrilled when we moved to pre-Labor Day. Again, my kids are all gone, so I don't really have a dog in this fight, other than in this role, but I continue to advocate for the pre-Labor Day start. It just, for all the reasons that I articulated and that we've heard from on the school side as well, so.
And just to reiterate, all four of our principals did favor draft one.
Is there any way to like, does the vote have to happen today?
I think we would like it
Yeah.
to,
Yes, it
people
does.
have
People
been
asking for
very
the calendar, they
anxious
plan
just
vacations
to
in
know.
advance.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
typically get it done in January if we can. It doesn't have to get done today, but we typically try to get it out in January, if possible.
If we had more time, what would you want to do at that time?
I was gonna say, I remember last year was a thought, but it wasn't, this is probably my fault, but it wasn't like executed. But we had thought of like sending out a survey to like the students and being like, hey, like, look at this calendar. And like, obviously, I think this might be a little too much for the students to look at, but we just like simplify it in the sense it's like appealing to like, you know, at least fill out the survey, but it's like, hey, this is when you start, this is when you end, and then like any important information between, and then you have like the students pick between 1 and 3, and obviously it's not gonna be the final word, but like, just to get a better pulse.
Well, I think let's put it, we'll have, because Marvel's going to be moving on next year, but Brendan, I'm going to put that with you to take back to the advisory committee to maybe next year we can consider, when we get the first iterations, if you want to gather student feedback, we can bring that back as part of the discussion. You're certainly welcome to hear that.
I will say, as a parent who just spent time building out a summer camp calendar, camps don't start until the later side of June, so the earlier time, and I know some other districts are starting after Labor Day, the earlier time does create a gap. But I am trying to solve.
One other thing just to consider is the later we push the school year back, the quicker the turnaround is for our summer services, which then leaves a large gap in the end of August into September. So currently our summer services will end August 7th. That'll leave almost 1 full month for the start of the school year for some of our kiddos.
With draft 1?
With the one that ends, the one that starts after, one that starts after Labor Day.
What is that? What is the date of the 7th based on? Sorry, what is the date of the 7th based on? Could you clarify? Like, I understand that this year it's scheduled for the 7th, but is that like some sort of timing consideration based on when school ends, or?
We try to give as much of an even split on both ends, end of the school year, start of the school year in the summer services, and also so we don't coincide with 4th of July, because if we have some of our students come back for 2 to 3 days and then have a day off or a long weekend, it really throws it off. So we typically have like a 2 to 3 week break on both sides. And it also gives our staff a little bit of a break before jumping right in. Last summer, we hired 4 people or 5 people outside of the Easton Public Schools. Our employees really enjoyed having the time off between the end of the school year. It was almost 3 weeks before the start of summer services, and then about a 2 week period at the end of it.
Okay, so if I'm hearing you correctly, so for this year, if we did the later start because of the summer schedule already being in place to start after 4th of July and go through August 7th, there would be an extra week there for students resuming. And then if we did draft 3 next year, the school year would end later. Would you anticipate starting the summer at around the same time that we're doing it now anyway, or would the end of the school year in 26 shift that even further, and would that be problematic?
It would probably look to shift. It's really, the challenge would be the start of next school year.
Yeah.
It would be a very long stretch for some of our kids.
Yeah.
So this is a 1-year gap. Depending upon how, I mean, to Nancy's point, part of this becomes easier because Labor Day is September 1st. If it was September 6th, we might have a different conversation. So the difference is starting on Thursday, the 28th, or Wednesday, the 3rd for the kids.
You all right?
Yeah.
You okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a tickle.
Okay.
I don't have anything.
Okay. You need to go get water.
Okay.
All right, okay.
What, do you want me to miss the boat?
No. No, because I moved before 4.
Can someone recap what Craig just went over? I apologize, I was completely distracted by Nancy. I thought we were going to lose her. So.
You wish.
We've hit that part of the meeting today.
All right, hold on, let me, please, thank you.
The microphone back to Craig.
Nancy, you okay?
Yeah, tickle.
Okay, good.
Come on, good.
Hi, Lauren. What I was saying is draft 3 gives a little bit of a challenge towards our summer services. We would be getting out of school, hopefully, with no more snow days, early to mid-June. It's about 3 weeks before summer services start. Summer services run for 5 weeks. They will give a full 3 weeks after that for our students before they return to school. So they'll end up with 6 weeks off and only 5 weeks of summer services. It's a really large gap for some of our students. What will happen is in that time period, there is a little bit of a challenge for coverage for our students that attend our summer programming.
Any other questions or feedback?
I do have a question, actually.
Yep.
We've never really discussed this before, but what is the percentage of students that do attend our summer program?
We have about 120 students that attend.
Okay,
In
thank you.
The special ed program, that's
Right.
a high needs program.
Right.
In the summer?
Yes.
Mhm.
Okay.
Any further discussion? All right, we have our split vote here. All right,
Not
Well, Lauren will probably be like, I'm not gonna vote either way. She'll be like, I abstained.
all
Laura,
right.
you're gonna abstain? Nancy
Come on,
Wilson.
Lauren.
She's giving you a hard time.
She's frozen. We've lost her.
Okay,
No, I need Nancy to be okay so she can vote.
I am.
Okay.
all right. So, all right, I'm gonna make a motion to vote for draft 1 of the calendar. Put that out there. Is there a second on draft 1?
Wiseman second.
Okay, roll call votes.
DeLuca, no.
Wiseman, yes.
Star, yes.
Loomis, no.
Pursue, no.
Okay, all right, so the motion fails. Would somebody like to make a motion for draft number 3?
DeLuca, excuse me. I make a motion to accept draft number 3.
Okay, can I get a second?
Second, Loomis.
Okay, roll call vote.
DeLuca, yes.
Wiseman, no.
Star, no.
Loomis, yes.
Pursue, yes.
Okay, draft 3 it is. All right. Thank you, everybody, for the feedback.
What if I
discussion on that?
Sorry, I didn't mean to make it that loud.
Nancy, you finally got your after Labor Day calendar.
Oh, your last
It only
year
took
here.
10 years.
I have to say, I respect all of the feedback and all of the opinions on it. It is hard because we have not had a ton of snow days. Next year I'll be cursed. It is September 1st, so that does influence my thinking. Nancy swayed me on that statement. And I do know that it is incredibly hard in June also at the same time to find camps and things. So we're sort of damned if you do and damned if you don't, I guess you could say. But I do think this is one of the few times we could actually pull it off.
So next June, people will be cursing us, or
I know.
cursing me if there's a
You-
lot of snow
I-
days.
And I'll say, don't blame me.
And she'll say, don't blame me, and Nancy will say, it is what it
You
is.
know, it is what it is.
Nancy will say it's all good.
Yes,
So good.
it's all good.
Feedback
All
from the
right,
audience.
moving along.
And maybe, I would just suggest, or I would ask, if we can have some quantifiers or standards for considerations for future calendars, whether they are based on academic, student needs, personal preference, convenience, whatever they are, childcare, so that we know exactly what people are looking for consideration for calendars going forward.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Thank you.
All right, so next up, we have a personnel change. This is a retirement of an Easton Middle School PE teacher. Dr. Cabral?
Thank you. Another tremendous loss to the district. Britt Selmeyer has put in for his retirement from the middle school. He started in the district in 1996 as almost a full-time teacher, but the very next year became a full-time teacher. Britt has worked at Easton Junior High, FL Olmsted, HHR at the time, Oliver Ames and Easton Middle School. He was not only the coach of the girls' varsity soccer team, but coach of the girls' 7th and 8th grade basketball team. He was unable to join us tonight because he has the last EMS basketball game this evening, unfortunately. I also worked with Britt when he was the department chair of the PE Health and Wellness department, and from grade 7 to 12. And he's going to be a tremendous loss. As we see from many of our employees, they have many roles in the district. They throw themselves into many services and things that assist kids, and it's a great loss to us. But certainly am happy for him, and having had his, you know, it's really nice when staff has their children in school too. You know, they're with them. It's a great experience. Most of the time, it's a great experience, and to be able to coach too is really wonderful. So we're happy that we benefited from his expertise, but also that he was able to enjoy that with his family.
I'll read his letter and then we can make any comments. Dear Dr. Cabral, I'm writing to formally announce my resignation from the Easton Public Schools effective June 30th, 2025. I'm committed to ensuring a smooth transition. I will work to complete my current tasks and help prepare the team for my departure. Thank you for the opportunity to be a part of the Easton Public Schools. I look forward to staying in touch and wish the Easton Public Schools continued success. Sincerely, Britt Selmeyer. So, Assistant Superintendent Pruitt?
Sure. I just wanted to wish Britt the best of the best retirement ever. I know Nancy's going to end with, and you'll love retirement.
I already told him that.
It's been fun to work with Britt. I wish him the best of luck, and like I said, a happy retirement. I always see him walking back and forth with his bucket hat, or you know, in the summer with all the kids, and we're waving, and he's always very invested in what the kids are doing, and a wonderful coach as well. So we wish him the best of luck.
And thank you.
So you were talking about the basketball, and he could be here tonight on Zoom because his game has been long over since 5:45. So I did see him coach tonight, this afternoon. But yeah, and not only losing Britt, but Kathy Tracy, and these are two people that run, you know, the four of them run the Moscato Mile, which is one of my favorite things. Excuse me. And his coaching of soccer, and he, you know, and you're right about the walking. Okay. And he's like, no nonsense, all right, let's go, get in line, we're walking, hurry up, keep up with me, da-da-da. So he's good. And, you know, I know he's got things on his list to do, and I wish him the best, and I already told him today, you're gonna love retirement, so we'll miss him.
Any other comments from school committee members or student representatives? If you know Mr. Selmeyer and want to wish him well?
Sure. I had in my COVID year, so our time together was cut short. But from what I remember, it was kind of what Ms. Luca was saying. It was very like, there's no dilly-dallying. What we're doing here is what we're doing. You're going to give me 10 push-ups. That means you're going to give me 10 push-ups. But no, Mr. Selmeyer was, you know, a great teacher, and I think he was also very, like, he was always connected with the students, and it's like, while you would be scared of Mr. Selmeyer, he's like a nice person once you get to know him, which I thought was very, and now that I'm looking back at it, yeah, it was a great time.
Thank you. Any other comments from committee members? So I don't know Britt personally, but I don't think my kids had him as a teacher, but I have a friend whose daughters both played soccer, and they have nothing but the utmost respect for him as a coach and for developing a super successful girls soccer program. And one of my friend's daughters has actually returned as a coach. So I know their respect and admiration for him is really tremendous, and a reflection of just all that he brought to the district, both from a teacher and a coach perspective. So we will certainly miss having him in the district, and we wish him the best with retirement. So with that, I'll make a motion to accept the retirement of Britt Selmeyer with regret. Can I get a second?
Second to Luca.
And roll call vote.
DeLuca, yes.
Wiseman, yes.
Star, yes?
Loomis, yes.
Percio, yes.
All right. Next up, we're getting there, guys. Policies. So we have a vote to approve the second readings of JFABF related to foster children, JICFA-E related to hazing, JJF student activity accounts, JJE/JJE-E, which is a fundraising policy. So.
Jen, can I interrupt you for a second?
Yes.
The activity accounts and the fundraising policy, Nancy, did we do this? I don't feel like we had a first reading on this
I
yet.
was gonna
I
ask.
believe that this was tabled. These two were tabled.
I think you're right.
You didn't, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, because we need Andrea to really look at these.
Andrea's here and she said the same thing.
Okay.
So we have, so these will be second readings of, actually, let me just look at, I'll cross-check against the
Just look at these
minutes
two.
from last week. Yeah, so we had,
And we have a bunch of other policies coming to you that are being looked over by Colleen,
Oh, the wellness.
Mary.
Yes.
And then we also have a bunch of policies that just need to be looked at by legal. But we're working on it.
right, okay, so I'm just looking, so we actually reviewed last time, let's see. Yes, we did have the first reading of JFABF, Children in Foster Care, first reading last time. And JICFA-E hazing, that was the first reading, and we spoke about deleting that at the second reading. Okay, so JJF and JJE/JJE-E. Are we prepared to first read those today, or do those not
No.
have any suggestions?
No, we haven't had a chance to talk to Andrea about them yet.
Okay, so then I make a motion to table discussion of policies JJF and JJE/JJE-E to a further, to a later date.
Not JJF.
Yeah, there's student
No,
activity.
student activity accounts.
Oh, never mind, I'm looking at the wrong one. Thank you, sorry.
So can I get a second on the motion to table those two items?
DeLuca, second.
Roll call vote?
DeLuca, yes.
So
Wiseman, yes.
are you saying you motioned and DeLuca's a second?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, she said, can I get a motion?
Oh.
Oh,
Oh,
I'm
okay.
sorry.
Okay,
So DeLuca, yes.
thank you. And can I get a
DeLuca's
second?
a motion,
Percio, second.
Percio's second.
Thank you for
And
keeping
then I
that.
said yes.
Okay,
DeLuca,
roll call
yes.
vote. DeLuca, yes.
Wiseman, yes.
Star, yes.
Loomis, yes.
Percio, yes.
Okay, all right, so now we are going to do the second reading on JFABF and JICFA-E. Okay. Take it away, our policy subcommittee,
Well,
or Dr. DeBrock, whoever
yeah.
wants to
Well,
start.
but just JFABF, there weren't any changes to it. It is a second reading, if you want to vote on that this evening. JICFA-E, the goal is to actually delete that. This is the second reading of that, just to refresh your memory.
Yep.
So did anybody have any questions or comments about either of those before we move to accept JFABF and delete JICFA-E? So with that then, I make a motion to accept policy JFABF. Can I get a second?
Percio, second.
Roll call vote.
DeLuca, yes.
Wiseman, yes.
Star, yes?
Loomis, yes.
Percio, yes.
Okay. And I make a motion to delete JICFA-E, which with our current practice will mean we're moving it to the deleted items appendix. Can I get a second?
Wiseman, second.
And roll call vote.
DeLuca, yes.
Wiseman, yes.
Star, yes?
Loomis, yes.
Percio, yes.
Okay, great. And then we will see these other two after there's been opportunity for you guys to get Andrea's feedback and discuss any.
She's a little busy.
Yes. Okay. Vote to approve the regular meeting minutes from January 23rd. Any questions, comments, or edits on the meeting minutes? So, you've had none.
This is the only thing that was confusing to me. Did we reference, I don't know if it's a critical item, but did we reference 2023? Portion of it was the new edition.
What page?
Oh. It's page 3, sorry. It relates to the graduation, the MCAS piece. It's the new law, but maybe the new law says 2023 and I just got confused.
Well, that would be
Yeah,
the
yeah, that's-
2025.
Right. Okay, yep, got it. Okay, never mind, I'm good.
All right, would somebody like to make a motion to?
Wait, has anyone commented on a spelling error on the first page on the 4th line up from the bottom?
Oh, yeah.
Harkins.
Harkins with no G.
Yep.
Okay, thank you, Lauren. Any other edits? Somebody like to make a motion then to accept the meeting minutes from January 23rd, 2025 with noted edit?
So moved, Garcia?
Can I get a second?
Second, Wiseman.
And roll call vote?
DeLuca, yes.
Wiseman.
Star, yes?
Loomis, yes.
Garcia, yes.
And then next up is a vote to approve the annual town report of the school committee. So this was presented at the last meeting for your review in between meetings. Any comments, questions, or edits on this? It is the approved, an approved version is due to the town tomorrow.
I just want to say, Jen, you did a fabulous job. It's excellent. You've covered everything, and I know how hard it is to write, so you did a very nice job.
Thank you. Yes, thank you for putting this together and all of your efforts to make this come together. Appreciate it. I had no motions.
Lauren or Jackie, any feedback before we move this to a vote?
Well done, Jen, well done.
Thank you.
Nope.
All right, then I'll make a motion to approve the annual town report of the school committee. Can I get a second?
DeLuca, second.
Roll call vote.
DeLuca, yes.
Wiseman, yes.
Star, yes?
Loomis, yes.
Garcia, yes.
Okay, all right, great. So next up is our student representative to the school committee updates. So Marvel and take it away.
Go ahead, Brittany.
Well, I'm still awake. Good evening, everyone.
You really were suckered into a tough school.
Sorry.
Marvel, everything.
Sorry.
You did good.
As it's been mentioned before, my name is Brendan Dolan. I am truly honored and excited to continue to provide student voice and perspective on behalf of the students at EMS and my classmates. And I'll just get straight to the update. I'm going to be doing EMS and OA. For EMS, the 6th and 7th graders had extremely positive feedback for the Spirit Days and weeks that they've had and would like to see more of that. 8th graders wanted simply less repetition and more innovation for the themes. I understand that's not really under the purview of the school committee, but worth noting. Students would like assemblies with personal human stories and how they affected and impacted people, not just generic messaging and themes. Students almost unanimously, all grades came to a consensus that they would like to see an implementation of a block that kind of emulates the concept of OA, selecting a teacher and going to a teacher if you need extra help. Yeah, like area each block at OA. During their respective periods, so like focus or a core extension. They would like to offer suggestions for future field trips and instead of having a rotation of specials, choosing one or potentially two that they're particularly interested in. Eighth graders would like a less judgmental atmosphere within the student population and to really normalize and embrace the differences and the diversity of that student body. The survey that went out recently during the focus block with various different types of questions, and now OA. Stephen Hill, who will be returning to OA to present to the upperclassmen after presenting earlier this year to the underclassmen. That's thanks to the Easton's Wings of Hope for raising the funds and their dedication to the substance misuse prevention campaign. All of our Ames will host a career fair on March 21st, 8:30 to 11 a.m. And invites any interested community members to present their professions. Email Mrs. Sweeney or Susan Sweeney, the Department Chair for Business and Applied Arts, if interested. Teachers have continued to convey their interest in a student feedback for course selection and would like to see that for the future. The high school schedule advisory committee are convening and weighing possible schedule pros and cons about the current new implemented schedule. And that's it for the message.
Oh, and then also for OA, student council had admin appreciation this Wednesday, so yesterday. So yeah, just wanted to shout out our administrators. But moving on, for Blanche Ames, there's a lot more positive reaction with the wit and wisdom among the group of students that Veronica had met with recently. The second graders liked learning about the Wild Wild West, first graders, creatures and animals, and then kindergartners, farm animals and different seasons. And then what's also been really interesting to hear that she particularly made note of was like the diverse thoughts on the program. So many students, love it some days and like dislike it the next, so they're kind of just keeping us on our toes. And then students also wanted to make more of an input on the lunch options, which I thought could be transversable to the other schools as well. I think it'd be really cool. Obviously, we're limited to what's given, but I think it'd be really interesting if, student voice was put into, what we eat and or like the meals per day or whatever we can do really at this point. But I thought that was very interesting. And then the last thing was the choice time remains very popular among the students. So we all had discussed this, that it was very cool how we are giving students at such a young age some like sense of independence and this idea that like you choose wisely and you choose and you kind of bear the consequences of how you choose, and I think that was very interesting to build a better foundation for our students in the community. And then for RO, we had, for a couple things. So at the time that Leah, who kind of runs for the advisory board, in meeting with RO, at the time that she had met with Mr. Getchell and the other students, Principal Getchell had a parent committee meeting, and they had talked about working on a program to teach students how to resolve conflict with I statements. And for example, she had made sure to mention, so like, I don't like that you do this and it makes me feel this way, instead of you do this and you do that and I don't like you, which I thought was very, very interesting because I don't remember, ever having something along those lines taught to me. I think it was kind of just something that you had to figure out on your own. And then they had talked about some school goals. So she had School Goal 2.2, which was to develop designated spaces on both playgrounds and in the cafeteria where students can go to reset their bodies and or emotions. So now the school offers alternate recess options. And I remember in the past it was kind of like these recess options are if you, like didn't get your reading log signed or like if you got in trouble, but now it's less of a consequence to go to these other places. And like, I think that's a really good, I don't know, just the reduction of the stigma is very great. And then this spot also mirrors the TLC programs, which helps students learn exactly how to manage or reset their emotions in calm settings, using fidget toys, reading books, listening to music. And then she also had talked about School Goal 2.4, which reads involving the Oliver Ames Student Council in our monthly community meetings at RO and at recess to model inclusive play and conflict resolution during recess time. So Oliver Ames Student Council hasn't been able to attend recess yet, but the students have been able to go to classes and meet with 2 classes per student to talk with them. I think Student Council might have been a typo. I think it's just OA students. And then they also would like to focus on 5th graders to help them prepare for the transition into middle school. I know as of right now, the Student Council is going down to RO to talk to them about our pillars, and it's gonna be like inclusion and service and kindness. and I think we're gonna have lots of activities and lots of fun with that. We did it for the first time last year, and then we're coming down and we're gonna try to start making it a tradition. It's awesome. Yeah. Very, very
Such
impactful
good stuff.
I love that we're all on the same campus to be able to do things like this. It's
Yeah.
great.
Thank you guys, what a great update from both of you. Any comments or questions for
Excellent.
Brendan?
Yep. I appreciate
Great
all-
job.
I appreciate all the efforts you put into this.
Absolutely. Yeah, and to just bring that voice of every school directly to us is so valuable.
This is just a thought that came into my head, but when we were talking about the unified music and wanting to bring that back, do you think it would be beneficial if we had this start of a foundation where, like, you know how all the other kids start music at RO in 4th grade? Do you think we could start the unified music at, like, in RO with the other students, and then maybe that'll build, like, a better and bigger foundation for OA, and you'll have more participation that way? Just a thought.
I love that.
Any thoughts on that, Mr. Davidson?
Well, I was hoping to bring this in front of the school committee at a different time, but.
Sorry.
it's
Wait,
okay.
wait, wait, hold on, microphone.
Man, I just get to visit today. Teresa Petty, who is our new department head, K through 12 for physical education and health, has been working with many stakeholders to really lead the work on creating a unified school district. So far, we have unified schools, but we're not considered a unified school district. One of the steps you saw tonight was around unified PE at the high school, which we have, but we were rewording really what it looks like in your program of studies. You're going to also see that as a presentation at the middle school. And so part of that is creating unified PE across the district at some point, but we're gradually going through the buildings to do that. We've applied to become a unified school district, so it'll be kind of one step at a time to align those programs, but it's something that we can definitely consider and tie it into what we're doing with the PE classes.
All right. Anything else? That's a great idea. Okay, next, let's see, schedule of payment. So since the school committee last met, we have completed or approved warrants. Let's see, 039S, 041S, and 048. No, 048S, which was reissuing a check. But the 39 and 41 were for routine operational expenses. 48 was that check reissue. Alrighty, so public comment. So if any members of the public would like to address the committee, just state your name and address. Please keep your comments to 3 minutes. There aren't a whole bunch of folks here, so I think we don't need to set. I think if everybody here spoke, we'd still be within probably a 10 or 15-minute public comment period. So if there are any members of the public who would like to speak, please let us know, and you can either come up or we can bring a microphone to you, and we can hear what anybody has to say. Not right now? Okay, all right, great. Well, thank you for being here, regardless. Okay. Next up, superintendent notes. Dr. Cabral?
I don't have anything that can't wait.
Okay. All righty. Assistant superintendent notes.
Just
Mrs.
2
Pruitt.
things very quickly. We have applied to join a district leadership program in the Age of AI learning cohort, which is in collaboration with the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, that will be bringing, it's of course, if we are accepted into the program, it is at no cost to the district, and it is, it's a team of 4. Our Director of Instructional Technology, Olivia Ramos, will be collaborating with 3 staff members from Oliver Ames to join this, and we have our fingers crossed that we will be accepted into this cohort. So just wanted to let you know about that, especially with all the AI things coming up, that we are staying abreast of all of AI. We do know that it is a necessary tool that we need to be managing and looking at with our students and our staff. The other thing I just wanted to let you know is that right after break, we will be sending out notification around our school and district report cards. Those are out and accessible online. So if you don't want to wait for official notification from the school, you can go to DESE's website and look that up.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments for Mrs. Bird? All right, school committee notes. Nancy?
I just want to thank everybody for coming tonight, and it's always nice to have an audience. And, you know what? You're making the effort to come and find out what's going on, and I hope everybody goes to PACE and checks that open house out, and enjoy February vacation. Yay.
Jackie?
No, I was just going to echo what Nancy said. Happy
See,
that people
If you let her
are.
go first, she would have said the same thing, and I could have said, I agree with Jackie.
All right, next time we'll go in reverse
Go
order.
in reverse order.
Me too, next time, reverse order. Okay.
Just happy that people are here listening and getting involved, and I hope everyone has a great February break.
Thank you, Jackie. Lauren? Any updates?
I also am echoing everything that everyone else is saying. I hope you all have a great break. I also want to point out that I noticed that RO was awarded Best Buddies Rookie of the Year award, which is wonderful. Hudson has been a part of the Best Buddies program for 2 years now. This is his second year, and he loves his bi-monthly, monthly meetings, and he's learned a lot. So, I appreciate the program. District-wide, I appreciate the program. And I also wanted to say that despite the heaviness in the country, in our world right now, it is nice to see our district still embracing and teaching and celebrating Black History Month. So I've been appreciating seeing the different things around the district commemorating the history and what it means to all of our freedom. So that's it.
Thank you, Lauren. Kelly?
I, not exactly an echo, I'll slightly twist it. But no, I appreciate everyone who's here. I appreciate those of you who are online. Some of you have been sharing thoughts and messages along the way, which show me how engaged and thoughtful everyone is, and it means a lot. The current budget situation weighs very heavily on me, and the impact of it weighs very heavily on me. So I appreciate all of you, as does the current situation with the Department of Education and the questions that we have there. This is not something that I take lightly at all. So I'm glad to see so many people show up and pay attention to it and help spread the word, because there is a lot to be considered here and a lot to be aware of. Everyone has talked about the PACE piece. I had the master plan committee meeting last night, and my first thought as I was on the way there is, we're working on a master plan committee and there's so much going on in town, how do we even talk about this? But when I got there and was participating in it, a lot of the focus is on what kind of town we want to have in 10 years and how we can think about new growth in a way that helps solve some of the challenges that we are facing. It doesn't solve it today, it doesn't solve it tomorrow, but as we think about the evolution of Easton and the current budget crisis, it is important to think about how we want to evolve in ways that could potentially target new growth. The firm that has been hired actually met with business owners in town as one of the constituent groups. They also met with PACE leadership, met with Nancy specifically, Nancy Donahue, to understand the dynamic and what we're facing, and key business owners and what they're trying to do for the town. So it is also an important way to influence the changes that will be coming. We are having an open house for the master plan committee on March 4th at 6:30 p.m. It'll be 6:30 to 8:30 in RO, the cafeteria space there, and there will be a presentation at 7. We're keeping it brief, but there'll also be boards and ways to engage and just learn more about it, and another way to try to create some impact on what we're facing and how the town evolves. So I just wanted to do my part encouraging everyone to attend that as well.
Thank you. I'll be as fast as I possibly can be. No sports report tonight, but we're getting to the end of regular season. Some of the meet-based sports are already there. They tend to
Girls
wrap up
track,
earlier.
first in the hall. Boys track, sixth in the hall.
Awesome. That's so great. So, and I know I was going through, Hawk Sports, and it looks like, we have, I don't want to leave out teams, so I know we have teams that are doing well all over. And then I think we have playoff contenders, it certainly seems like, for boys basketball, girls basketball, and some of those other MIAA tournament-based sports, which will be kicking off in the next couple of weeks. So we'll have a report at the next meeting, because we'll be right in the midst of, it's probably the first playoff game that night or something.
We also had swim and dive competing as well.
Yep, swim and dive, indoor track, there's wrestling, there's gymnastics, there's cheer, there's an awful lot going on with winter athletics right now, with a lot in flux in terms of making, regional tournaments and state tournaments as teams, as individuals, so I'll have it all sorted out for next time. And then there's been a ton going on with the music department as well, with, MAJE stuff and, SEMSBA and all that, all of those auditions and competitions and show choir.
Musical coming up.
The musical's coming up, tickets are available for that now. So on school committee, subcommittee updates, just to keep folks in the loop. So on the audit subcommittee, we are seeking a date to meet with the auditor to go over, it's actually the fiscal 23 audit. So, but anyway, we're trying to get that wrapped up, and then we'll move on to the fiscal 24 audit, getting that just reported out to the select board. On February 25th, Easton Forward, which is a committee that is looking at long-term environmental sustainability in town. We had a working group in January. There's another meeting that will be happening on the 25th that I'll be attending. And then the negotiation subcommittee, we have our next negotiation session with the EEA in early March on the 5th. And let's see, I think that's it for subcommittee activity. And then also, I know several of us have been involved, have either attended or are listening to recordings. MASC, Mass Association of School Committees, has been very active with learning lunches and workshops, and those are available on the website. There was a meeting that Jackie and I were in this week, and a recording from last week as well. So just keeping abreast of all that's happening in public education, national and local level, and state level. And last thing is, not to go back to the very heavy budget topic, but the Boston Globe has been covering the school budget crisis, because it's a statewide issue. They've had a couple of articles this week that really resonated with everything that we have learned and have known and have been communicating about the difficulties that districts like Easton are facing. We are in, unfortunately, very good company. There was some encouraging movement in that the Globe article I didn't jot down the name of the coalition, but there is a statewide coalition with representation
United for Our Future Coalition.
Excellent. So United for Our Future Coalition, and it has, do you have the blurb of everybody who's involved in that? I don't think it's in there. I know it's Mass Association of School Committees. The two, there are two leading teachers union associations in Massachusetts.
AFT and MTA.
So AFT, MTA, Mass Association.
And I think the BTU too, the Boston Teachers Union.
Boston Teachers Union, Mass Association of School Superintendents, School Committees,
PTA.
Mass PTA.
And some civil rights attorneys.
Civil rights attorneys, yeah. So anyway, so this cross-sectional statewide group is going to be pressing very, very hard with one voice for the legislative action that we desperately need. And we've hammered this before, but we receive less in state aid now than we did in 2008 on a dollar basis. That's not even indexed for inflation. Like, the state contribution to towns like Easton is not enough. Taxpayers are bearing the brunt, and now services and employees and everybody else is bearing, is yielding the results of that. So, long-term fix, we need state legislative aid to fix this, and we are one voice moving forward with getting very loud and very persistent with trying to see some action happen with the Chapter 70 funding formula. So, more to follow there, but we're in good company, and hopefully we'll see more on that. It's a long-term fix, though, very long-term, multi-years, but movement. So that's it. Next meeting is the 27th. We will have our student advisory committee before the school committee. So student advisory committee will be meeting with us at 5:15, and then school committee meeting at 6. Okay, so with that, I'll make a motion to adjourn. Can I get a second? Oh, I'm sorry. Are we returning?
We're not returning, but do you need to adjourn?
Yes, we do. Yes, sorry. I'm like,
Yeah.
thank you.
My stomach
All right,
says
so,
that as well.
I'm going to make a motion to go into executive session, not to return to open session, so adjournment of the public session, for purposes of MGL Chapter 30A, subsection 21A2, to conduct strategy sessions in preparation for collective bargaining with Easton Educators Association teacher and professionals unit. And in my opinion, having this discussion in open session would be detrimental to the bargaining position of the school. Can I get a second?
Second, Loomis.
All right, roll call vote.
DeLuca, yes.
Wiseman, yes.
Star, yes?
Loomis, yes.
Percio, yes.
All right, great. Thank you, everybody, for coming. Have a great night. Thank you.
Thank you.